Wingman Joker, thank you for listening to this channel and please support the channel. Please subscribe. Chapter 261, Massacre. Victor, who was preparing to use some very nasty method to end the situation, slowly opened his eyes wide as he sighed in relief. He slowly put the strange-looking talismans in his hand away, then wiped the blood off his finger. This was a really close call. He almost used that nasty bug. It would have been a real waste to use it on those weaklings though. Thankfully, he was right. His waiting had paid off. After Rebecca attacked him earlier, he plotted many different scenarios. Finally, he decided to bet and stall for time waiting for this moment. Too bad, the moment he waited didn't come. And when Mana hurried to help her young master, she didn't realize that she was limiting Victor's options, because he would have to take her into consideration. She really tied his hands. Victor didn't really blame her as he knew how much she loved him. But he would have to punish her later no matter what. Victor slowly stood up as he leveled up, filling up his mana and health bars. Yes, he leveled up. Ever since that midget told Victor that there was no boss on this floor, he felt that it was strange as he could clearly see the hall that was clearly a boss chamber on the map. All the pieces fell into their places when he saw Gustav. Victor had been waiting for this moment when the pouch was completely dissolved by the green goo. It was then the skeleton queen who was in it perished. Yes, as Victor expected, that bastard Gustav should have subdued her earlier, wanting to use her against the Lich King, or other players. And as the one who caused this, Victor von Weiss earned a ton of experience and leveled up immediately. Thanks to his upgraded system, he didn't have to wait until the dungeon was cleared. Leveling up not only reset his attributes but also removed all temporary effects. Paralysis to be exact. He was still poisoned though, so he quickly took another antidote pill as he quickly glanced at his log. Level up, level up, level up. Skills upgraded. Admin appraisal +4 greater than C. Players' skills and artifacts feedback require authority x10. Master seal +5 greater than added 1 slot. Can transfer attributes point to OR from when slaves level up. Unlimited disguise +4 greater than can disguise other players and artifacts skills feedback require authority x10. New titles. Greater than last breath warrior survived a deadly situation in a dungeon with your health and mana below 10%. Once a month, if your health dropped to 0, it would turn to 1 instead. The queen was not that high leveled, so Victor only got 3 levels from her, but this was not bad. Name: Victor von Weiss. Level: 122. Titles: Greater than Dungeon Explorer discovered a dungeon. Greater than Dungeon Conqueror x2 triggered a dungeon clear event. Greater than Savior x2 saved a human from an unavoidable death flag. Greater than Avenger killed a stigma title holder. Greater than Master Demon Slayer killed a demon 100 times stronger than you. Greater than Last Breath Warrior fought in a deadly situation in a dungeon. Status: Authority: Infinity. Health 4680 4680. Stamina 3600 Mana 4020 4020. Strength 335. Agility 300. Intelligence 375. Luck 47. Charm 55. Order points 172. Class: Fate Weaver. Subclass: None. Class skills: Eyes of Destiny, X+2. Destiny Shield, SSS +1. Fate Tracker, X+1. Fate Instinct, X+1. Recognized skills: Womanizer, A. Face Slapping, C. Butt Slapping, D. Silky Tongue, D. Gourmet, E. Pain Tolerance, E. Poetry, E. Creative Writing, E. Songwriting, E. Sword Arts, E. Sleeping, E. Poison Brewing, E. Acting, E. Lying, E. Evading, E. Self-healing, E. Dagger Arts, E. Needle Arts, E. Movement Arts, E. Martial Arts, F. Piano, F. Guitar, F. Quick Reading, F. Dismantling, F. Poison Resistance, F. Bleeding Resistance, F. Mace Arts, F. System Skills. Admin Appraisal, SSS +4. Admin Merchant, SSS +2. Master Seal, SS +4 5 6. Contractor of Doom, S. Unlimited Disguise, SS +4. Eidetic Memory, A. Super Enhanced Senses, A. Silent Blade, A. Fire Breath, A. Disabled due to the lack of fire magic affinity. Dagger Throw, B. Health Regeneration, E. Lie Detection, F. Enhanced Senses, F. Magic Affinity, None. Bloodline, Elder Dragon, AAA, 5% Awakening. Fate Strength, A, less than unaffected by outside fates greater than. Equipment, less than broken greater than Defense Talisman, S. Dragon Storage Ring, S. Shadow Shifter Ring, SS. Area Inspect Ring, C. Levitation Necklace, A, less than broken greater than Hidden Armor, B. Victor smiled and nodded, this is more than he had anticipated. Now it was payback time. Ellipsis. Rebecca frowned and then returned her eyes to the clearing. She didn't expect the first boss to be eliminated at this time, never mind, she needed to finish here then disappear forever with Victor's head. She coldly watched as the skinny man, who seemingly didn't care a lot about the announcement, slowly approached and grabbed Mana by the neck then, he vanished, not just him, everything around her in the clearing vanished. She was surrounded by a white emptiness. Illusion, she yelled then activated her area inspection. It didn't work. She quickly prepared for an attack, but it came from an angle she never expected. The sword in her hand suddenly became alive and began shaking at her, forcing her to throw it away. It vanished, *T, she made a mistake, this was definitely Victor moving it. Rebecca got flustered as she reached for her storage pouch to take her dagger, but her pouch was not there. Suddenly she felt something go around her neck, it was some kind of a wire. She tried to pry it off or to kick the attacker behind her, but it was to no avail, it was as if she was kicking empty air. In her last seconds of clarity, she could barely see the bloody handsome face of her strangler. He was like a ghost floating in midair. His purplish black eyes were like an endless abyss, and his cold smile came straight from hell. Moments later, she passed out. She was lucky though, because she didn't get to hear the bone-chilling screams that followed. Ellipsis. Martin, the Von Sway patriarch, casually stepped out of his practice cave just as an elder ran toward him in a way that was not fitting for a man his age. Master, thankfully you are out, we are in trouble, Ahmm, he yelled then began to cough as he tried to catch his breath. Zamika, I always told you to stop smoking, it is not good for your health. Look at you gasping for breath after a slight effort. Martin scolded as he watched the old man calm down. Master, Moss, you, Gust. AAA, have, dead. Zamika coughed a little more. Gus, the gardener, why should I care? Martin raised one eyebrow, did he touch the hybrid poison ivy? I warned him about it. No, Master, Gustav, not Gus, Gustav, the undead king. He is dead, his soul jade had just broken moments ago. Zamika interrupted. What? Martin gasped. Gustav was one of the 5 nightmares, the pillars of the Von Sway family. Who did it? Where was he? We don't know. Master Gustav always acted secretly when he went out to collect new servants. Damn it, Martin yelled, call the other 4 nightmares, we need to talk. Master, while you were in your closed practice cave, another one of the nightmares was killed, Zamika said after some hesitation, it was Master Alvar. What? When? Wasn't he at the Wyron mansion supervising that kid Troy? Martin asked as he checked Zamika's expression, making sure that he was not joking. Master Troy was killed, and the mansion. It blew up with a nuclear bomb, it was about a month ago. What? It took Martin 10 whole minutes to get all of this. Zamika had just told him that the family had lost half of its hidden cards in just 2 weeks. Who was it? Martin asked finally as his eyes turned red and his shoulders began to shake. One must know that Alvar was not only his uncle, he was one of the elders who supported him. We don't know yet, then find out, Martin yelled, and make Levi come see me. He hissed angrily as blood seeped from his squeezed hand. His son would need to readjust his plan. Ellipsis. Lily stealthy landed in the devastated clearing, followed by Mina who quickly began to inspect the surroundings with shocked eyes. This was a bloody massacre. Not only were there random body parts and blood splotches around, but she could spot 11 freshly dismembered corpses. 3 were in the center of the clearing while the rest had seemingly been caught sneaking or lurking around. All the corpses had one thing in common. They had bloody holes dug in their nether regions. They were fresh as blood was still seeping from them. Maybe 15 minutes or less. What monster did this? Mina asked with an ashen face as she looked around in vigilance. The Nutcracker. Lily replied she knew who it was. Her young master. He was the one who told her to blow the crotches of anyone who dared to touch or even look at her improperly. She took it metaphorically as just kicking their balls off. She didn't expect Victor to mean it literally. What? The Nutcracker? Mina asked. Was it a monster? She heard that name before, but she had no recollection of when. It must be at the academy. We should leave, what if it was still lurking here? she said as she began to look around nervously. Don't be afraid, you will be cracked by him sooner or later, Lily said with a smile, no one can escape his grasp. She added as she began to giggle. Her mood had just super improved after noticing a mark on a nearby tree. The young master was close. Mina didn't get it at first, but after witnessing how Lily began to giggle as she started to hurry in a certain direction, she understood. Oh, she blushed, then awkwardly touched her cut hand. Will the young master accept her like this? She didn't have to wait long to know, as Lily quickly found Victor's trace and began to follow it until they reached a very dark and ominous place in the forest. Lily said nothing as she walked forward then vanished from Mina's sight. Mina, knowing that this must be a safe area, quickly followed. The darkness vanished and was replaced by a small clearing. Victor was sitting there with Mana. They were scamming two poor girls into signing some shady contract. And a girl they knew, Margaret, was tied and hanging from a tree with a burning hot campfire below her. That slut finally got her due. That was what Lily thought as she smiled and ran to her young master then threw her nimble body in his embrace as he stood up to welcome her. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with his sweet smell. Sister, what happened to your hand? Mana suddenly asked, ruining the harmonious atmosphere. One of the guys before Mina began to tell her sister the story. Young master, Lily asked as she felt Victor's body tense up and release a murderous aura that she never felt before in her life. She slowly let go of him and stood to the side as she knew what this was about. She was not the one who needed his hug the most. Come here, Victor said as he reached for Mina who was looking down and pulled her into his chest then embraced her hard. Don't worry, he said, no matter what, you are still mine. I will find a way to fix you up, he whispered in her little ear. She said as her tears began to tear up. She feared that Victor would not like her now. That she became like this. Is that bastard still alive? Victor asked slowly. Probably, she whispered as tears began to fall from her eyes. Don't worry, you are still my sweet Mina. He whispered and kissed her hair, reassuring her again. Mina didn't answer as she began to weep. She had been holding it all this time. She was just a teenager after all. Don't worry, he kept saying as the two girls, who had just been forced to sign their lives away, began to shake from the very scary cold look in his eyes. Chapter 262, Need to Become Stronger. She slowly opened her eyes as she smelled the smoke and felt the heat on her foot. It was one of her sneakers. It was on fire. Wah! Rebecca screamed as she struggled and realized that she was tied up and hanging over a campfire. She had no time to think as she used her other foot to take off the flaming sneaker and then kicked it away. This was a white dragon sneaker, damn it. It cost her a fortune. But damn, that was close. She always wanted to look hot, but not that hot. Now where was she? She began to look around as she swung her burnt foot away from the flames which were 3 feet below her. Her shoelace must have caught fire by accident. Was she captured by some cannibals? Was she about to be cooked and eaten? She wondered as she surveyed the clearing around her and spotted the two girls who were sitting to the side chatting and giggling. Weren't those two girls the ones who were with that twin, the ones who hurried to help Victor? Right, Victor. Where was that paycheck? His head was her way to riches. She looked around using the rope that bound her to make a full rotation. There was no one else in sight. You too, she yelled, making the girl look at her coldly. So you woke up, slut. One of them said as they walked toward her. How dare you try and hurt the young master? The other one spat. Why am I hanging? She asked. She knew the answer though. The young master said that your flesh is very tender, it would be a waste to kill you, the first one said. We will use you as a living food supply, we will only cut the parts we need to eat. The other one replied while trying hard to contain her laughter. Victor had told them to frighten her a little and they were more than happy to follow their new young master's command. Truth be told, the two girls were really miserable all their life. Both of them were orphans who were lucky to get to be chosen to be disciples for a 9th grade sect called the Raging Flint sect, which in fact was just a beggar's sect that collected orphans to try an 80% death chance awakening artifact on, then used them to work for the sect. So the two of them, like all their brothers and sisters, had two choices, either leave the sect and fend for themselves or go out and search for resources and then bring them to their sect master. As poor girls without a background, they knew better than to try to survive alone, so they began to go on missions to acquire resources. That's how they ended up getting scammed into this dungeon where they lived a life worse than hell. Thankfully they were pretty enough that those men didn't eat them, but kept them as pets. One day ago, they managed to escape from the base they were kept at, thanks to the twins, but due to their lack of supplies, they were captured pretty quickly by a more dangerous group. They heard rumors that the stoic men didn't leave any survivors. They thought that this was their end, but 2 hours ago, they were blown away by the charming prince. No, by the young master Victor von Weiss, who not only saved them but also killed no less than 50 evil players with ease. The girls should have been terrified by his bloody actions, but seemingly living on the edge for 5 months had changed their perceptions. The look of Victor cracking those men's crotches with a mace was unforgettable. He looked dashing. After that, young Master Victor took them to this secured area where he gave them only 2 choices. To become his maids and serve him forever, or to become his maids and serve him for eternity. They, as young girls who didn't know any better, chose the first choice with some reservations as they feared their sect master. But after Victor explained that he was an heir of one of the 5 families, they were blown away once again, surrendering immediately before signing the contracts he presented them without thinking. Their sleazy old sect master would wet his pants if he realized whom they would be working for. Now, after Victor left to finish off the guy who hurt his maid, they finally felt that something was wrong. They have just sold themselves into servitude. Why did they do that? They had no idea. After confronting each other, they realized that Victor must have used some kind of skill on them. But weren't system contracts only applicable if signed with free will? They had no idea, but after some thinking, they realized that this was much better for them. They have seen Victor kill many players after all, and he could have chosen to silence them forever instead of subduing them. Although they were just a little annoyed that he tricked them, serving Victor was not bad at all. After all, in their sect, they were no more than servants to the sect master and the elders. At least here they will have a salary. A huge FC King salary, and the opportunity to get the protection of a grand family like the von Weiss. And to top it off, they would be able to serve that handsome young master. Just thinking about his dashing smile made them drool. Rebecca shivered as she saw the 2 girls who eyed her with dreamy eyes and smile with drool seeping from their mouths. Was this really her end? Ellipsis. Catch those B*TCHES. The burly man said as he walked in a strange way. One of his legs was missing, so he was using a makeshift crutch to move around. That red-haired B*TCH was the one who blew up his leg. Thankfully, one of his men saw her sneaking around and reported it to him, so despite having some difficulty walking, he took 20 players with him and was at the moment pursuing the escaping girls throughout the garden. This place had many dangers and dead ends, but getting stuck and having to live here for the last 2 years, those men knew this place like the backs of their hands. Boss, we cornered them. Those B*TCHES ran to a dead end. It's the plantation. One man whom he sent ahead as a scout returned. If we close that stone gate they would have no place to go. Oh, the boss then started heading toward the plantation as he considered his options. He was a very cautious man by nature. What if this was a trap? Impossible, the girls didn't have their rings or any weapons. He saw their frightened faces and those can't be faked. Boss, what if this place had skeletons? A young man that had recently joined them interrupted the boss's thoughts just as they reached the location, earning himself a slap on the back of his head. Don't worry, the skeleton hates this place, it's very muddy. It had evil plants before, but 5 months ago, all of the groups worked together to burn it down, the boss said as he surveyed the location. Do you know those 2 girls? They should have come in with you. The boss asked the young man. They are in the other class in the academy. I heard that they are some kind of maids. The young man was not sure. He only got to survive here because the boss was his distant cousin's son-in-law's second uncle's son-in-law. Useless things. The boss cursed as he moved forward toward the door, then began to sniff the area for any abnormalities. There was none, only the smell of 2 frightened girls. He looked at an old veteran who was one of his assistants. Keep the noob here with you. The 2 of you will stay outside and guard the gate. The rest will follow me. I haven't eaten twins in a long time, he said with a murderous look. This time he will not let them escape. Boss, but we want to eat too, the young man who was ordered to stay outside complained. Shut up, I will save you a thigh or an arm. You have to earn your food here. We will go round up the other runaway sluts later. The boss said, winking to the veteran, then licking his lips before entering the plantation. The boss nodded and then walked inside the plantation. Perhaps this place was once some princess's private garden, but it was now his hunting ground. Although he was very annoyed because the girls ran. The feeling of being a hunter made him feel alive, it made him feel young again. Maybe some action every once in a while was not bad. Perhaps he would try playing with them a little before eating. The two who were ordered to stay outside used all of their strength to close the stone gate and then stood guards outside it. They could hear the jeers of the others from the inside and that made them very disturbed. "Stay vigilant," the veteran said as he secretly checked the young man's figure. "Not bad. The boss was right not to kill him with the others." "I will," the young man replied, totally unaware of his companion's thoughts. "Why didn't the boss leave more men to guard outside?" he asked. "The place inside is like a maze, he wants to finish this quickly," the veteran replied, not revealing that the boss who feared for his life wanted all of his men with him in case an ambush awaited them there. "Oh," the young man said, then sighed. That's when he spotted something. A very pretty girl was walking toward them with an injured shoulder and stomach. She was bleeding heavily as she screamed for help then fell to the ground behind a big tree. The two men looked at each other. "Be careful, I will go check," the veteran warned. "Watch my back." "I understand," the young man replied as he started to survey the surroundings with a bow and arrow ready to be launched. The middle-aged veteran carefully headed to the girl and then stood there stunned. "Can such a pretty girl exist?" "Old man, what's wrong?" the young man asked, waking the veteran from his trance. "Ah, it's a girl, she is badly injured," the veteran replied as he swallowed. He really wanted this girl, he never wanted anything more in his life. He banged dozens of men in his lifetime. This was his first time feeling like this over a girl. Too bad he didn't have any life left to explore this new feeling, as he failed to realize that there was a dagger piercing through his throat. Ellipsis. The young man, who was pouting, made sure that there were no other enemies around then turned back to look at his partner who had already pounced on that girl behind a tree. That bastard acted all high and mighty, but in the end, he couldn't even hold himself. He cursed as he ran toward his partner. He wanted some of her too. He carefully approached while being extra vigilant. His friend was busy raping that poor girl who was struggling hard. Soon he was close enough to see her face. Damn, this girl is pretty. That was also his last thought as he failed to notice the thin thread that was stretched across the 3 trees beside him. It was being slowly tightened around his neck. He watched as the girl stopped struggling then pushed the old man's corpse away before rolling to the side, pulling the threads, and decapitating the poor guy. Who could still not understand how such a pretty girl existed? After hearing the headless corpse hit the ground, Lily slowly stood up, dusted her clothes, and then put her veil back on. Damn vermin. How dare they look at her like that? Only her young master could do that. She slowly approached them and then used her mace that was meant to crush the skeleton to crush the 2 corpses' balls into oblivion. She sighed. Why was she so weak? If she was stronger she could have helped the young master more. Rather than using traps, she would have been able to watch those scream in pain before she killed them. Damn it. She should train harder. Thankfully those idiots only left 2 men outside. She was prepared to deal with 4 at the same time. But her preparations were unnecessary. Hopefully, the young master and the twins would not take long inside. Her role at the moment was just to secure the gate from the outside and wait. Monster. Help. A man came flying over the plantation walls moments later startling Lily, who just watched him hit the invisible barrier and then bounce back in. The young master was right. When she asked him why he had to use all of those expensive barrier talismans when setting this trap up, he told her that she must always be 200% prepared when facing players. One can never know what kind of skills his enemies had. Chapter 263, Deep Fried. After entering the plantation and firmly closing the gate, the boss ordered his men to search around carefully as he began to survey the area with his nose. Damn it, those girls chose the right place to hide. In the past, it was filled with man-eating plants, but at the moment it was just a maze of charred trees and rocks. Too bad the ground here was very muddy and this place had some very disturbing foul-burnt odor. That's why no group chose to use it as their base. Not even skeletons could be found here. The mud posed a problem for him too as he could only walk using a crutch. It was all because of that B*TCH. He will make sure to. Boss, where are you? A call from one of his men alerted him. Where were his men? They were beside him just a moment ago. Ah, a scream sounded from somewhere. It sounded like one of his men, but which one was this? Why was his scream so high-pitched? Where was it from? Why can't he pinpoint the direction? Ah, what is that? Another man screamed. He knew that one, he was his assistant. *T. This was a trap. He was in some kind of formation. He quickly took a step back but because he was not yet used to missing a leg he fell down. That didn't stop him though. As a professional player he knew quite well that those who usually survived dungeons were the ones who escaped first. He needed to find the way out. Where was that gate again? sh*t an illusionist. He quickly used his skill, smell ultra sense. Despite the disturbing odor of this place, he could easily find the place where the gate was, as it was the place with the lightest foul odor. And it was not where he thought it should be. He almost fell for this illusion. Thankfully he had this skill. It has saved his life many times through the years. He would reward his nose later when he got the girls. With an evil grin, he slowly tried to stand up, but failed. Where was his crutch again? Damn it, he looked around but couldn't find it. Having no other choice, he began to crawl his way toward the center of the plantation where he thought the gate was. He needed to leave this place fast. Maybe his men would buy him some time. Around him, he could hear the loud voices of his men screaming in despair. He wanted to avoid them, but strangely enough, he could not pinpoint their location. The voices were coming from every direction. Come here you, BTCH. No, a monster. Where are you guys? Boss, you are not my boss. No, Daddy, please not. No, no, no. May the Nutcracker have mercy on your balls. Spare us. www. Where is he? Found you. No. Hail the Nutcracker. Call his name. The Nutcracker. No, not there. No, Mommy. The voices of his men were slowly getting a few pitches higher the more the boss moved forward. He was really scared at the moment. What the hell was attacking them? Was it the gas in this place causing hallucinations? His men couldn't fall this easily. They were all veterans who knew how to survive. Soon the voices faded and the only thing he could hear was the frightened beats of his heart. That's when he saw it. A monster like no other. It was standing there, looking at him. A demon with 2 long horns, dark black hair, and empty eyes that spelled death. Found you, it said in a monotone voice, then the world turned black around him. Ellipsis. Is this the guy? Victor asked as he looked at Mina, who had just finished butchering some naughty men and was now covered in blood. Yes, young master, she said as she glared at that unconscious man with hatred. She slowly approached, intending to smack his balls off. She had finally remembered what the Nutcracker was. And she wanted to become one. Victor suddenly held her hand off, stopping her. Wait, I have some use for him, he said. Don't worry, he will get his due punishment, but not from you. Only I can finish him off. You are mine after all, he told Mina, making her nod and blush. Victor slowly knelt beside the man, popped a power-disabling pill in his mouth, then searched his body for treasures. That man only had one storage pouch. From inside it, he took out 2 rings that belonged to Mina and Mana. Storage rings were very rare after all, and this man probably kept them for himself and hid them from his team. He was probably waiting to kill the twins so that the rings would become ownerless. Come here, he told Mina, then slowly held her left hand, then slid her ring into her finger, making her gasp and then smile with a blush. The girls always wore the rings on their right hands, but Mina, who had only one hand right now, had no other choice. That's what she would tell Lily later anyway. Until now, because of the girls being extra aware of their status in the family, there were only 3 who dared to wear their rings in their left hands. The first was of course Lily, who clearly made her point of being Victor's property no matter what. She wore the ring on her left hand ever since the young master gave it to her. The second was Margaret, who didn't have any shame, and lastly Alex, who was obviously a guy. Mana, who was a little jealous, silently watched her sister get her ring, then shyly lifted her left hand toward Victor while pouting. Victor gladly put the ring on her slender finger, turning her pout into a smile. If the girls asked later, she would just say that she wanted to be like her sister. You 2 will always be mine now, he said as he spanked their little butts, making them both look at the ground to hide their blushing faces. Let's get this trash back to the base. I need to cut him up while he is still fresh, he said as he tied the man, preparing to drag him. What is this place, young master? Mana asked as she began to help him. I didn't really have a chance to fully explore it, but it should have been some kind of plantation. Too bad those idiots burnt it up. It could have some nice specimens. Victor lamented, not telling the girls that he made sure to collect some seeds that he would try to revive later. He liked the idea of having a living plant maze around his base. Hopefully, the world would not reject those seeds. Victor pondered as slowly walked toward the door, where Lily was waiting. She quickly noticed the rings on the girls' fingers but said nothing. They earned them after all, unlike that slut Margaret. Ellipsis. Rebecca was cursing her bad luck when Victor entered the clearing while dragging behind him a large man covered in mud. Behind Victor, followed his veiled maid and the twins whose bright smiles contrasted well with the blood of their enemies that covered their clothes. Rebecca didn't dare to say anything as she watched Victor tie that man to a tree beside her with a strange chain. "You are awake," Victor said as he looked at her after finishing securing the big man. "Ah, can you let me go?" she asked, still acting as Margaret. "I was joking." "Dear Rebecca, do you think I am a fool?" he asked, making her gasp as she realized that he knew she was not Margaret. "What, Rebecca, isn't she Margaret?" Lily asked in shock, earning herself a glare from the twins who have long realized the truth. It was as if they were saying, "Do you really hate Margaret that much?" Lily hiccuped and looked away in embarrassment. She didn't really hate Margaret, but that slut made her feel threatened. So she was glad earlier when she thought Victor was punishing her. Victor chuckled and watched as Rebecca dispelled her mimic skill, returning to her old looks. That skill was really good, as it physically changed the looks, so even if the owner was unconscious it didn't break. "What do you want from me?" Rebecca asked coldly. She was trying to act strong, but her wet pants showed how scared she really was. "You will know later," he said as he looked at the two sect girls who were left to take care of this place. "Lena. Mila, did anything happen here while I was away?" he asked. "No, young master," the girls shook their pretty heads. Other than touching themselves while thinking about him, nothing really happened. "Good, go help the girls wash out the blood off their bodies. I will ask this guy some questions," he said, then paused and waved his hand, making a thick smoke surround him, Rebecca, and the tied-up boss who was feigning being unconscious. "I just want to have a private talk with him," he explained after noticing the girls' questioning looks. After that, he turned around and entered the fog. The girls didn't know what happened next. They headed to a nearby water canal, where they took a quick bath, washed the blood splashes off their bodies, then changed into fresh clothes. Lena and Mila acted as guards. As archers, they had good scouting ability. The girls finished their bath and returned to where Victor was just as the fog he created had disappeared. Victor, who was stretching his arms and neck, sat to rest near his oily portable cooking utensils that were still hot. As for that boss, he was no longer a man, he wasn't even a human anymore. He had long become just a piece of charred smoking meat. A lump of smoking meat with a hole where his crotch should have been. "What did you do to him, young master?" Lily asked curiously. The blood and oil splattered everywhere told a very interesting story. Even as an expert assassin, she was having difficulty figuring out the torture methods he used. "Nothing. I just wanted him to vibrate a little, but he couldn't do it even after I drowned him in boiling oil." Victor sighed as if this was that man's fault. "Maybe you should have untied him first, young master, so that he could vibrate freely," Mina said. She was completely content with Victor's revenge for her. This proved how much he liked her. "Oh, good point. Why didn't I think of that?" Victor said, making the girls giggle. "It doesn't matter, I have a better toy. I didn't expect that dear Rebecca here knew how to vibrate so well," he said, making Lily finally look at poor Rebecca, who had witnessed the entire private talk Victor had with that man. She was still shaking wildly to this moment after wetting her pants 3 times, causing the campfire below her to be extinguished. "It will be your turn next," Victor turned to Rebecca and told her as he slowly stood up, then walked in her direction. "No, please, spare me," she began to kick around and shake wildly, making Victor really consider sparing her. "This girl can vibrate well. Who was the one who offered a bounty on my head?" Victor asked as he slowly lowered her rope. "I don't know, your name was on the bounty list of the Assassins Organization, Pink Blood. It appeared 3 days before we entered the dungeon," she answered quickly and truthfully. She had seen how Victor interrogated that man who lost a layer of skin every time he told a lie. Victor had peeled him like a potato, cut him into small pieces, then deep-fried him after that. All of this while stuffing him with the best quality healing pills to make sure he would not die. After a quick interrogation, Victor kept asking that poor man one question: "How dare you touch my toys?" The man tried every possible answer while screaming in pain, but in the end, he died without giving Victor a satisfactory answer. This young master was a crazy maniac. She should have never crossed paths with him. The organization's information only described him as a pervert. No one said anything about him being a psychopath. Pink blood, Victor pondered, he never heard of it. According to Kai's information, there was a couple of assassins organization after him, but after the assassination attempt on the highway back then, the family should have already sent warnings to everyone. Only idiots would dare to attack him nowadays after his status as an elite heir was revealed. "Oh, are you a member of this organization, or are you a freelancer?" Victor asked. A member, I am a bronze-ranked assassin. She replied quickly. Rebecca belonged to a fallen noble family, only she and her family managed to awaken in 3 generations. Although her family was relatively poor, they had firm ties with this assassin's organization, so she joined them to take advantage of her skills. Who made the order on my head? Victor asked. I don't know, but the rumors were that the giver was someone the boss didn't dare to offend, she answered, making Victor squint his eyes. Is someone more fearsome than his family? He needed to investigate this. I see, Victor said as he carefully inspected the vibrating. Rebecca, do you want a chance to live? He asked suddenly, preparing to scam a new girl. Although she threatened his life before, she didn't really cause any harm, and he really appreciated her talents. Chapter 264, Elvish. It was already dusk when Lara returned to the mansion, where she quickly headed to her room, took a quick shower with Elle, then went downstairs for dinner. How was your sleepover, Miss Lara? Hilda asked as she prepared the table with the girls. They usually had their meal together. Victor made sure that they saw each other as family. It was okay, Lara said with a smile on her face as Elle, who sat beside her, secretly nodded. Lara made a lot of new friends. As a girl who grew up without any friends, she felt refreshed. Although that girl Stephanie was a little snobbish, she was passable. Good. You must remember not to trust people easily though, Hilda warned as she watched the other girls take their seats. Arya and Hannah seemed to be getting along rather fine. Monica was still feeling awkward, but Theta, who became much more confident lately, seemed to be leading her by the nose, so she would be fine. I understand, Lara said as she pouted. Her mother and teachers on the island had already taught her how to be cautious. Good. Now, let me introduce you, Hilda said as she clapped her hands and a little girl whom Lara hadn't seen before stepped forward. She was wearing a black suit that fit her perfectly and made her look super cool. This is Yin. Young Master Victor has assigned her to be your personal bodyguard, Hilda said, nudging Yin, who seemed a little distracted inspecting the people around the table. That young Master Victor was definitely a pervert. Thankfully he seemed to be only interested in much older girls. Ah, nice to meet you, young miss. Please take care of me from now on, she said as she awkwardly bowed as Hilda taught her. Yesterday she had a crash course in proper etiquette. Ah, nice to meet you too. I will be in your care too, Lara said with a sweet smile. She liked having new friends, and this girl Yin looked really pretty nice. And her esteemed brother would only choose the best of the best to be her bodyguard. Come sit with us, there are no strangers here, Lara added the same way Victor usually invited the girls. Yin looked for approval from Hilda, then grabbed a seat next to Lara where she sat and remained silent as the girls began to question Lara about her sleepover. Where is esteemed brother? Didn't he return from Nuller City? Lara asked after putting a slice of potato in her small mouth. Ah, he had to go on a field trip with his friends at the academy, Hilda quickly answered. He should return anytime today, she said. It was just an F-ranked dungeon after all. Oh, Lara pouted as she continued eating. She wanted to ask for her esteemed brother's permission to invite her new friends for a sleepover here. Yin, who had finished observing everything, sighed and began to eat as she disabled her soul vision skill, before rubbing her eyes, which hurt a little. She had just inspected her new mistress, Lara. To her surprise, the girl's soul had something wrong. It was very pure, but somehow it felt strange. Like a withering flower. Victor had warned her not to reveal this soul skill to anyone though, so she would tell him about what she saw when he got back. But what really distracted her earlier was not Lara, but the little girl beside her whom Lara called Elle. Why was her soul so damn bright? Looking at her was like looking straight at the sun. It hurt her eyes. She suddenly paused and looked straight at a girl who was awkwardly chatting with the other girls. They called her Monica. She had a demon scent on her. It was very faint, but Yin could smell it. Was she a demon? Yin inspected her soul while using her hand to shield her eyes from Elle's dazzling soul light. No, Monica was perfectly normal. It was not her. She must have met or touched a demon in the last couple of days. Ellipsis. After finishing with the twins' revenge, scamming Rebecca into signing a very fair contract and getting some intimate sleep in his large sleeping bag, Victor, with his ever-expanding entourage of pretty maids, made his way through the garden. Yes, Rebecca was now with him and she had become one of his dogs. It was in her contract. Victor even put an electrified collar on her. The girls had to ask him why he had that thing on him, but he didn't reply and just smiled smugly. He didn't want to disappoint them by telling them he just took it from one of the men he killed. He wanted to create the illusion that he was always prepared. As for Rebecca, he was conflicted about her, but there were a couple of reasons why he decided to spare her. First of all, he didn't want a lot of his classmates to die, as that might cause the wedding to be delayed. Secondly, like the two girls Lena and Mila, he planned to expand his spy network, and a girl with mimic skills was really precious. It was an uncommon skill after all. Victor planned to make this girl join Alpha's spy organization after leaving the dungeon. Thirdly, she was still young and can be trained to his liking. Lastly, Victor needed a scapegoat to escape the eyes of his enemies. He was planning to use Alex, but that idiot got herself sent immediately to the lowest floor. So Rebecca would work as a good temporary replacement. As for his feeling of resentment about what she did in his past life, he will make sure she would feel them in her bones when he trains her later. He began to giggle in an evil way, then paused and threw a dagger at a nearby tree, making another poor player fall to his death. Now they were heading toward the base that Gustav used before. The Skeleton Queen's boss chamber. Along the way, Victor made sure to hunt every player who thought those girls looked yummy. Victor was in fact using the girls as a lure for the said players as he disguised himself. One must know that Victor had already succeeded in killing all the leaders of the three biggest groups in the garden. Gustav, the boss who was after Mana, and the skinny guy who attacked him with Rebecca earlier. Only scattered shrimps were left at the moment, and Victor had no plan to go after them as long as they didn't try to get his toys. In the end, they reached their destination after eliminating 31 players and 14 skeletons. Victor looked at the grand cathedral-like building inside. This was the first boss's room. It was built on the fringes of the garden. Victor. A short pretty girl jumped into his embrace as soon as he walked through the grand doors. It was none other than Lynn, who as soon as she reached this floor was instructed by Victor to come here before him and clean this place up. Victor casually hugged her and patted her head as he inspected the hall. The floor was full of corpses that she cut into pieces. No, they were undead. Gustav must have left them to guard this place, and after he got killed they began to roam freely. That guy probably didn't have any living men with him, as all of his followers were undead. Are there any living survivors here? Victor asked Lynn as he slowly let go of her. No, there were some fresh blood stains in one of the inner chambers though. She said as she followed Victor, who began to walk around inspecting this place. She sneakily pulled his hand and held it as she began to walk beside him. Although this place was designated as a boss room, it was more like a throne hall of some palace with a high gilded ceiling and long faded murals filling the walls. The girls walking beside Victor began to slowly walk around and inspect the area curiously. What with all of these gibberish symbols? Mila, one of the two girls Victor saved, asked as she inspected the engravings that accompanied the murals on the walls. They seemed to be some kind of writing, Lynn replied as she tried really hard to ignore Lily, who was shooting daggers into her. Bam! Lynn, who was distracted, bumped into Victor, who stopped abruptly at the largest mural in the hall. It depicted a pretty woman with armies of skeletons coming out of a strange coffin and kneeling in front of her. Below the mural, there was a long text that seemed to be describing the scene above. Young master, can you read this? Mina asked as she watched him squint at the text. Yes, Victor replied, surprising the girls. This language was not the one he knew, but it was very close to one he learned before when he worked as a librarian. High Elvish. Among all the possible languages in the world, the Elvish language had a very distinct feature. It was timeless. Elves considered themselves better than anyone else, and their language holy, so they disdained speaking in any other. Coupled with their long lifespan, it meant that the language didn't change a lot throughout the time and between the worlds the elves sprawled through. That's why Elvish was considered one of the 10 lingua francae of the universe. And Victor in his research had learned 6 of those to some varying degrees of proficiency. The other 4 languages were impossible to learn for a human. Really? Rebecca asked in surprise. What does it say? She added, earning herself a glare from Lily and the girls. She quickly shut up, remembering her position. She was at the bottom of the food chain in this group. Victor didn't seem to mind the question though. It was a rare chance for him to show off in front of his girls. It tells the story of the owner of this place. My mistress. No, sorry, wrong subject. A queen, she was probably that same skeleton queen boss, Victor said as he carefully began to read the text. Elvish was not a language he liked, as every letter could mean different things depending on the social status of both the writer and the reader. Earlier he was reading it as a subject to the queen. The queen who conquered the something grand dungeon. Did what? Gave blowjob. Ah, no. Ah yes. She spared the demon boss and offered to make a deal with him and spare him in exchange for him serving her forever and granting her kingdom unlimited prosperity and bananas. No, that's the word for fruit. Ellipsis. Strange. Anyway, this mural was built to commemorate that scam. No. Deal. Yes, it's a deal. Victor said, affirming his words. He didn't recognize all the letters, but he got the general meaning. Although the mural didn't say what happened next, Victor could guess. Deals with demons never go well. Except for Lin, who thought that Victor looked really good when he had that expert look. The other girls looked at Victor while unsure if he was joking earlier or did he really read that. Even Lily, who was taught to speak 5 languages proficiently as an assassin, had never seen anything like this before. Not that she doubted Victor, but lately she began having this strange feeling that he seemed to be always scamming the people around him. What language is this young master? Mana asked just to be sure. Elvish, High Elvish to be precise. I met an old hidden master once. He spoke it to show off, and I made him teach me. Victor lied casually. He learned this from one of the pretty slave elf maids Julian gifted to him. She was a princess or something. Oh, the girls didn't know how to reply to that. What about the symbol drawn on the coffin? Lin suddenly asked, making Victor frown and look up again. He didn't notice it before because it was a little faded. This is not an elvish letter, but a hell symbol, he said with a frown, a very deep frown. Change of plans, he said as he turned to face the girls with a very grave expression. Hell was the name that people gave to the demon's original world. Any demons who came from there were not to be trifled with. Those guys were the real deal. The levels below would be much more dangerous than I expected, so Mina, Mana, Mila, Gina. I am Lena, she protested. Really? Whatever, too many names to remember. Anyway, you girls with Rebecca will now make your way upstairs to the top floor, then wait there, he said. Only Lin and Lily will accompany me. Victor really wanted to send Lily away too, but he didn't dare to. She would not like it at all if he was left alone with Lin. Taking care of Lily alone would not be too troublesome. He also wanted to level her up a bit before the wedding so that she would have enough stamina to face what would happen that night. But, young master, the twins suddenly said. They wanted to protest. No buts, your safety is my top priority. With your level, you will only hinder me downstairs. Victor scolded, then turned to the 2 other girls, Mila and Lena. From now on, the 2 of you will act as if nothing happened between us. After the dungeon gets cleared, you will contact my team by the number on the card I gave you. The girl named Alpha would tell you what to do. He explained before looking at Rebecca, who began to vibrate, no, shake a little. After the dungeon gets cleared, you do the same, and my men, women will contact you. He corrected himself. For now, I have a mission for you though. If you do it well, I wouldn't mind forgiving your past mistakes. I might even start giving you a good salary, he said, making her nod like a chicken. What should I do? She asked. Mimic me, he said. Simply from now until the end of this raid you will be acting as an arrogant young master. A slightly injured young master, he added, taking a spare ring and giving it to her. Oh, she nodded as she grabbed the ring and wondered on what finger should she put it. This one has an extravagant tent and food. Use it with the twins when you reach the upper floor. Make sure that all the teachers and the students think that I am there. He explained, winking at the twins who nodded unwillingly. They really wanted to go with him, but this mission was important too. With this, Victor might be able to fool the Destiny sect, who would surely review the reports after this raid was finished. Chapter 265, Inverse Soul Apple. Harvey von Geldstadt kicked Tobias' chest very hard, breaking a couple of his ribs and sending him flying through a couple of walls and a dinner table. The poor man finally stopping after hitting the reinforced concrete wall on the other side of the mansion. Harvey slowly moved through the new openings in the walls and stood above his grandson, who was coughing up blood. The poor maids, who were shocked by the sudden destruction, all ran away as soon as they saw the patriarch's angry face. Grandpa, that maniac killed Clint, Tobias screamed after wiping his mouth. I had to do it. I already said that no one was allowed to make a move against Victor. Harvey said as a silver sword slowly formed in his hand. Clint was already expelled from the family anyway. Do you think I didn't know you were secretly sending him money? He added as he slashed Tobias's arm. Ah! Tobias screamed in pain as 2 men ran into the ruined dining room, nearly stumbling upon the crushed glassware on the ground. Father, grandfather, please stop, they said. Those 2 were Colmere, the punishment hall master, and William, Gary's father and Harvey's favorite grandson. What, do you want to defend this bastard too? he said angrily before beginning to cough hard, causing him to cover his mouth with his pale hands. Black blood seeped through his fingers. Father, appease your anger, Kolmir said. You already cut his hand. I think this is enough punishment. You must care about your health. We already sent out an agent and removed the bounty on Victor. Fine then, Harvey said angrily as he glared at his son while wiping his hand. But if anything were to happen to Victor, the first will kill you myself. He barked. If Victor was hurt by his family, this would be some real trouble, as Victor had already made him sign a contract. Kolmir sighed as he ran to help his father, who leaned on the wall for support. He became a little weak after his outburst. His health was not very good. Will, take your brother to the infirmary, Kolmir told his nephew, who nodded and hurried toward Tobias. Wait, Harvey said. William, about what I told you last week, make it happen soon. Grandfather, but Elise is, that man is a pervert, William said with a complex expression. Shut up. Don't act as if you really care about the girl now. Your wives and sons almost bullied her to death last year. All you truly care about is your FC King image. Harvey scolded, then coughed a little. But father, can't she be an official wife? No, it would take a lot of time for that. I need someone to carry the seed of the Von Weiss as soon as possible. If my sources were right, their family might not last until the winter. Harvey said as he turned around and began walking to return to his office with Kolmir's help. He slowly passed through the broken opening in the wall, which slowly began to repair itself after him. Ellipsis. Father, wasn't this a bit too much acting? Kolmir asked his father, who was completely fine. He sat on his chair, raised his legs on the gilded mahogany desk, and watched the office's wall repair itself. This wall material cost a fortune, as it can only be found in some specific dungeons, but it was worth it. No, fooling the dark chamber is our priority now. They must not know that I was cured of that poison, Harvey said after some pondering. But wouldn't Tobias try to attack Victor again? Clint was his favorite son. I am counting on that. That fool Tobias is as useless as his son. I am sure he will go and ask the Dark Chamber for their help very soon. But didn't you want to protect Victor? If Victor can be killed this easily, then I would be a fool. My hunch is never wrong. If the Von Weiss family manages to survive this crisis, that kid might become one of their supreme elders, if not the patriarch, one day. Harvey replied, I just want to watch the chaos and wait for a chance to gain some benefits. Father, you mean that Victor's latest blunder in the brothel was a cover-up? Kolmir asked. He even dared to damage his own public image like this on purpose. Yes, I was pretty surprised when I met him that day in the auction. That kid is a snake. He has been deliberately building a certain image around himself, and he managed to pull a cover over everyone's eyes. Harvey said as he looked at the report on his desk. And, those toys he left at the brothel are very interesting, he said. Aren't they just normal toys? Did they serve some purpose? Kolmir asked. No, it is just that those are handmade. You can't find things like that on the shelf. They reflect some fine taste. Find out where he got them from. Ah, okay. Kolmir was not really sure what to reply. His father was beginning to revive his old habits after he was cured. Kolmir was already expecting to gain a lot of new little brothers and sisters pretty soon. Now leave me, I need to meditate, Harvey said as he took out a leather-bonded book from his storage ring while waving for Kolmir to exit the room with his other hand. Yes, grandfather, Kolmir said as he walked out of the office while wondering what kind of top-secret things that book continued. His father always kept it with him. Ellipsis. Margaret cursed as she began to bang her head against the rock-solid ground. It hurt like hell and she felt that it was about to explode. Why was this happening? She had no idea. The moment she ate that demon in her soul space, everything was fine, but the moment she regained her consciousness, she felt this pain. It was getting stronger, as if her very soul was tearing apart. She could taste the blood in her mouth and she knew that she had bit her tongue, but she didn't care. She had no time to care. She felt everything around her clearer than ever, but at the same time, the pain was 1,000 times more severe. She could feel the burning lines appearing all over her soul. It was breaking apart. Was she going to die? Just as the pain became unbearable, from deep within her soul a series of symbols shone, as in Margaret's soul space a large talisman began to form as it absorbed energy around it. The pain slowly subdued and then stopped. Margaret slowly sat up and focused on her soul space, where now a complete golden talisman was floating in front of her soul. What was this? Margaret had no idea, but she knew it was not harmful, as on it, Victor's symbol was engraved. Ellipsis. Were you telling the truth earlier? Lily asked Victor as she watched the girls leave after getting their instructions. Victor usually told her the truth when they were alone. Although Lin was with them at the moment, from the way Victor treated her, Lily knew that he would not mind telling the truth in her presence. About what? Victor asked. Everything, the mural, she said. Oh, about 90%. I only lied about one thing. Can you guess what it is? He asked as he eyed both Lin and Lily. The one who guesses right will get a kiss, while the other would get her butt spanked, he declared as he inspected the rest of the murals. The language name? No, the woman on the mural is definitely an elf. Lin pondered as she frowned, trying hard to remember what Victor said exactly. Is it about the deal with the demon? In the mural there was no demon, just skeletons, she said. No, the deal is true. This entire garden was probably the result of that deal. The demon is hiding in the black coffin, he explained, spanking Lin's butt out of nowhere. Ah, she moaned in surprise then blushed. That was not a voice a noble girl like her should make. She hoped that Victor liked her reaction though. Lily glared at Lin hatefully. That slut was definitely trying to seduce her young master. You lied about the old man who taught you. It was definitely a pretty girl. That's the only reason you would listen to her, Lily said finally, earning herself a surprise reward kiss on her pouting lips as Lin, who was glaring at them with some jealousy, rubbed her butt. She lost this round. Exactly. You were prettier though, Victor told Lily as he chuckled, then let go of her and began to move deeper into the hall. There is nothing in that direction, I already checked, Lin said as she ran after Victor and grabbed his arm while glaring at the still stunned Lily with challenging eyes. Lily quickly sobered up and touched her lips with a smile, then, not wanting to lose, ran to Victor's other side and grabbed his other arm. There is something there, Victor said then paused. Ladies, I might need my arms later. Victor pointed out, but none of the girls let go. Did he push them too hard earlier? Okay, since both of you don't want to let go, grab hard. This might hurt a little, he said as they reached a certain bland wall. Then the world around them wrapped as Victor used his shadow-shifting ring to pass through the wall. The girls watched as the scenery changed around them. They were now in a white room with a marble pedestal in its center. What is this place? Lin asked as she tried hard to regain her balance and in the end, had to let go of Victor and sit down. Her mana was a little drained. The reward room for the upper dungeon, Victor said as he took a pill and put it in Lily's pale mouth. Her state was not good at all as the process of passing through the thick wall had drained all her mana. Her intelligence attribute was not high enough. First dungeon, Lin asked as she watched Victor lay Lily on the ground slowly. This was her punishment for not listening to his command earlier. Yes, if I guessed correctly, this dungeon is composed of 2 or 3 dungeons above each other. What? Lin asked. You saw the mural earlier, the elf queen must have found the dungeon below. This one, and instead of clearing it, she must have made a deal with its boss. Victor explained. I presume that the deal must have had a curse that shattered the elf queen's world. But, how could she leave a dungeon after entering it? Lin asked. Different worlds have different rules, or maybe she had some artifact for that. I can't really tell, he said as he slowly walked toward the marble pedestal. On it, there was a small golden apple. Inverse soul apple, S. Convert energy to soul, sh*t. This thing was amazing. Victor said with a smile. What is it? It looks like the ones in the garden. Lin exclaimed as she grabbed his arm again. Lin, we can be intimate later. Victor scolded, flicking her small nose with his finger. Lin bit her lip and then slowly let go of his arm. She was a bit reluctant but his tone was clear. This apple is useful to me. For others, it might be wasted, or be very dangerous, he said finally as he put the apple in his ring. What does it do? Lin asked. It allows someone to convert energy to soul power. Basically, it is for enlarging one's soul. Why is it dangerous then? Lin, who didn't fully understand, asked. You must know that enlarging someone's soul recklessly is a very dangerous process. Souls are not usually that flexible. In fact, most souls have a hard limit. If they grew any larger than that, they might explode. I have ways to mitigate its effect that others can't understand, he explained as he surveyed the empty reward room one last time, then headed toward Lily, who slowly opened her eyes and sat up. Do we have to go through the wall again? Lily asked with a little fear. She had just recovered. No, the wall here can be opened from the inside, he said, moving a secret lever that opened the wall. We will rest a bit here then move downstairs toward the second dungeon, he said as he frowned. That hell symbol thing? Lin asked. Demons that come from hell are very unique. You can consider them nobility among demons, who usually have some very tricky and underhanded techniques. If my guess is correct, that Lich King is such a creature. Victor said, we must rest and prepare well, the battle downstairs would certainly be hard. He paused as an announcement rang throughout the dungeon. System notification. 2 hash quest had been completed. The Lich King had been eliminated. *T. What the hell happened? Victor asked as he read the notification while ignoring the girl's questioning eyes. Chapter 266, The Lich Battle. 30 minutes earlier in the dark barely lit corridor a group of valiant warriors was running. In front of them, hordes of skeletons of all shapes and colors were running too while totally ignoring them. FCK, what's going on here? Tom asked. Earlier when he and his team were slowly grinding against the skeletons, they were interrupted by the legions of skeletons. First, they thought they were coming to get them, so they hid in an opening to the side while preparing for a defensive battle, but to their surprise, the skeletons completely ignored them. It was after they saw Alex and Zoe who were running while out of breath among the fleeing skeletons, they realized that all of those were running away and that whatever was chasing them was not to be underestimated. But what was it? It only took one look to the back to join the stampede. All of them were now escaping the crawling darkness that slowly moved behind them like a tide while constantly changing its shape. When it turned into a frog, it would snap its tongue, grabbing a bunch of skeletons to eat them. When it turned into a snake it would spit awesome black poison that melted whoever it touched into a black goo that the monster swallowed when it turned into a slug that covered the entire tunnel. With its slimy body, the ever-dark tunnels were now being lit by that thing's flame-like eyes. At least they had enough light now to wonder about the majesty of these tunnels. As if they had the time. What should we do? Alex asked as she crushed a slow skeleton in front of her so that she could pass. What is that thing first? Tom asked. We have no idea, it has been chasing us since the second floor blew. Zoe answered. I am presuming it is Icefigure the Great or something. The new boss. Did you try attacking it? Tom yelled as the girls around him cleared the path for him. It doesn't work. Zoe answered. I tried to throw some dagger at it, but they melted the second they touched him. She had already figured out that Tom was the leader of the other group. I have a plan. Follow me, Tom suddenly said and tried to move to one of the near side tunnels. Stop. Zoe wanted him but it was too late. The side tunnel was packed full of skeletons that were not escaping but heading their way with sharp lances. The moment Tom tried to jump above their heads a swarm of arrows began to fly in his way from the skeleton archers hiding behind. If it were not for Madeline, who jumped and pushed him to the side, he would have become a porcupine. Falling to the side with an injured shoulder, he realized that if he wanted to force his way he would be delayed enough that the thing in the back would reach him. He had no choice but to resume his running. At least the skeletons in the main tunnel were not attacking him. Wait, why were the skeletons in the side tunnels not escaping? Those skeletons are not escaping, they are heading somewhere, Tom suddenly said as he caught up with the others again and took a healing pill then gave one to Madeline. She was hit too. We know, can you just listen for once? Zoe scolded, as long as we stay with the flow they would not touch us, but if we tried to exit to some side tunnel, all of them would attack us at once. She explained then looked back as the Icefigure who got stalled for 32 seconds on the side tunnel then turned and continued to run their way. Tom, aren't they heading toward the black door? Peter suddenly said. Ah, right, Tom remembered. Black door, Zoe asked as she popped a stamina refilling pill in her mouth. She was getting tired. We saw it earlier, it should be the boss's room, it was heavily guarded. Tom said, tripping one poor skeleton to his side then ran above him. We didn't dare to come closer to it before clearing the surrounding tunnels. Peter added as he watched Zoe use a giant bone to crush a skeleton in their path. I understand now, Tom suddenly said, that boss is collecting his armies, and the reason they are not attacking us is that he wants to use us. That's logical, Zoe said. She had been wondering why those skeletons were not attacking them as long as they didn't leave the flow. I have a plan, Tom suddenly said. What? Alex asked. We will wait for the two bosses to fight to run away. Tom said. No *T. You call that a plan? Zoe scolded. No, you don't understand. Madeline here has a skill that allows her to create a repelling energy barrier. It's not strong, but the skeletons would not be focusing on us. It will only last for 10 or so minutes, but that would be enough as we just need to barricade near one of the door's posts and then hunt for benefits once the boss fights with each other. He explained while patting his succubus girlfriend's head. This seems dangerous, Peter said as he looked at Tom and his girlfriends with envious eyes. Why can't he get a harem too? He was both handsome and rich. Relax, we will just use the chaos when the two bosses are fighting to finish them off. Tom said confidently. What if? They cooperate against us? Alex asked. Don't be a jinx, Zoe scolded. Earlier when they were running, Alex wondered if there were traps here, and seconds later a pit full of pointy sticks opened below their feet. Thankfully, Zoe was able to react on time and throw a rope to the other side. This Alex was a jinx. Don't worry, Tom said, the skeletons belong to the boss in the dark room, the guy is clearly not on his team, he said as he focused on conserving his energy. He planned to perform the killing strikes later, that was his secret plan that everyone around him had already realized. We just need to wait for them to tire each other out. Can't we just run while they are fighting each other? Alex asked. If any of the bosses survive, they will be after us next. Tom explained. Get ready, Zoe, who was not entirely convinced, said just as a dark door appeared in the distance. They wanted to go forward toward it, but the swarms of skeletons who were running earlier seemed to have stopped and created a barricade in front of the gate. They were like an army in formation. Jump over their heads, Zoe said, then grabbed Peter to her side and jumped. She had long realized that he didn't have that kind of stamina. Tom also grabbed two girls, while Madeline caught another as they jumped over the skeletons' heads. Alex needed no help as she was already a few feet ahead after using her spear as a jumping pole for the third time today. She was getting proficient in this. The skeleton, as expected, didn't flinch as the spears in their hands pointed to the crawling darkness that they began attacking moments later. Zoe frowned as she escaped. She had just noticed that the skeleton's spears were hurting that thing. Not a lot, but it was affecting it at the very least. Her weapons were completely useless against it. Too bad Peter was being carried by her and she didn't have any room to attack. Wait. Tom, throw me that arrow that was stuck on you earlier. She quickly told Tom, who was running by her side, using the skeletons' heads as stepping stones. Tom frowned, then opened his eyes wide and nodded after noticing the same thing she did. Peter, take this arrow and aim it at the monster, Tom said, making Peter, who was being carried like a stack of weed, curse. How was he going to pull this off? After some thinking, he formulated a way. Zoe, turn me to the other side, he said, making Zoe throw him up and then catch him after he flipped in midair. Now do it, we will reach the door soon, Tom said. Stabilize me for a few seconds, Peter said again as pulled the bow's string and then fired the arrow at the monster's burning eyes. The monster screamed as the arrow passed through its body, creating a burning line that vanished moments later. It didn't slow at all. It didn't work, Peter said. No, it did, Zoe explained as she adjusted Peter again to be carried in a more comfortable position. Weapons that come from this dungeon do work on him. We reached the gate, everyone to the right side, Tom commanded as he formulated a plan. The group quickly found the place Tom told them about behind a grand pillar next to the gate. They quickly landed near it, killing all the skeletons around in a few strikes and then erecting the barrier. Zoe, who was not sure about Madeline's powers, also took out a few barrier talismans and pasted them around as the others kicked away a few skeletons who complained about it being too crowded. Icevigar reached their position after a few moments, turning into a slime that melted all the skeletons and began to melt the barrier. Zoe was about to order a retreat, but just then the black gate opened and a huge coffin appeared from inside. From it, a black ray of energy suddenly shot towards the monster that turned into a frog that opened its mouth wide and swallowed the ray, then shot it back. The dark energy shattered the coffin, revealing a golden skeleton with two long horns and dark eyes inside. The skeleton didn't have a chance to do a thing as the frog's tongue shot at it and then garbed it and pulled it back to swallowed whole seconds later. System notification. 2 hash quest had been completed. The Lich King had been eliminated. Just like that, Alex gasped as she began to step away. Retreat, Tom screamed as he began to run to the side over the now lifeless skeletons. He could hear the sounds of bones getting crushed behind him, followed by the sound of a barrier getting shattered. Tom, who didn't like that sound at all, slowly looked behind and discovered that the monster who turned into a slug had decided to go after them. It just leisurely followed their tracks as it devoured the skeletons' bones it passed over. His plan was a failure. Whimsical system, help me, Tom screamed in his mind as he raced with the others to run away. It has been a while since he asked for the system's help, ever since it began to bother him about Nova. But he had no other choice now. Ellipsis. Victor cursed as he used his blood slave ability to view what was happening below. He only ignored those guys for a few hours, and they managed to screw everything. What happened? Lynn asked as she saw Victor's face turn pale. A big mess. The final boss will be heading here. We should quickly head to the stairway and prepare a trap. It would be the perfect place, Victor said as he began to review his options. He already had a plan to kill that thing, ever since he came to this place. How long do we have? Lily, who could stand up now, asked. 3 to 4 hours, it should be enough, he said as he began to think about a backup plan and a second backup plan, just in case. Alex was here after all. Chapter 267, Boss Battle 1. We should split up, Tom suddenly suggested after 20 or so minutes of aimless running. The group had finally managed to outpace that guy by escaping through the narrowest paths they could find. That thing was having difficulty moving because of its size, which had grown 3 times after devouring a lot of core skeletons. It could only move now after turning into a slug and squeezing through the tunnels. It was advancing relatively slowly, but from the creepy sound in the darkness behind them, they knew that it was still following them. Thankfully, after the Lich King got eaten, all of the skeletons got deactivated, so the tunnels were now empty again. They just had to be careful not to step on any sharp bones. I will go right on the next fork, you guys go left, Tom explained to Zoe. Due to the darkness of the tunnels, an intersection would only be visible a few feet before they reach it. So he made sure to make things clear. Don't listen to him, Alex suddenly screamed, he knows where the exit of this floor is. He is planning to head there by himself. She explained. She knew this because 10 minutes ago, she received a talisman message from Victor, giving her the map and telling her to meet him on the 5th floor if she was still alive. Although she was still hesitant to meet Victor, fearing his punishment because of the toys incident. She knew that he was probably the only one who could kill this thing. She has witnessed his power and shrewdness firsthand in the spider dungeon. Alex had already noticed how Tom was slowly guiding them toward the exit for the last 10 minutes. She was sure he has the map too. Really? Zoe, who noticed Tom's reaction earlier, asked, forcing him to quickly hide his annoyance. I have no idea where the exit is. How could I? Tom said, hiding the fact that the whimsical system had already given him the map of this place. Splitting up is logical, Zoe said after some thinking. That thing had slowed down, but they were getting tired, and it would catch up with them sooner or later, as they would never be able to sleep or rest. And even if Tom knew where the exit was, which she had a hunch he did, as long as Icefigure followed him, she could just stay here and find a way to kill that thing from behind. No, she would not risk getting trapped. Let's do it, but I will go to the right, she declared finally just as they reached the next fork in the tunnels. She didn't wait for Tom to say anything as she went right, giving Tom, who began to curse silently, no other choice but to go left with his group. The system had warned him not to divulge anything about having the map after all. Ellipsis. Shit, that asshole. It took Zoe 5 minutes to begin cursing loudly. Uncle Falcon had warned her to stop with this vulgar language as it was not fit for a lady, but at the moment she couldn't help it. The monster had chosen to go after her and Alex, who seemed to have also followed her. Why did it go after them and not the bigger group? What kind of bad luck was this? We will split up at the next intersection, she said. She had the strangest hunch that the monster was purposefully following Alex. She needed to get away from this jinx. No need. I know where the exit is, Alex said. She didn't want to stay alone. Just follow me, we can leave this floor safely. Really? How did you know? Zoe asked, squinting her eyes. It is my navigation skill. Alex lied. Now turn left, she said, turning to the left. Zoe frowned, then decided to follow. She didn't want to end up trapped at a dead end with that thing behind her, and with Alex, she can always escape if things went wrong. Ellipsis. In another tunnel on the other side of the fork, Tom moving stopped after realizing that Icefigure stopped following him. F***CK. He cursed. Is everything alright? Peter asked as he glanced at the empty corridor behind him. He was worried about Zoe. Although she was not his type, as he didn't like tomboyish girls, she was his classmate after all, and she saved his life earlier. Yes, just need to collect my thoughts, Tom said as he closed his eyes. System, is there another exit? He asked as he began to examine the map in his mind. Zoe went through the only tunnel leading to the exit, and if he followed now, that thing might turn and attack him. The whimsical system pities you for getting outsmarted by a little girl. Unfortunately no, there's only one stairway for this floor. Why are you in a hurry to exit anyway? Isphigar is no longer after you. You can go back and check that Lich King's room now, it would surely be filled with treasures. Does this whimsical system need to teach you everything? That's right, Tom quickly opened his eyes wide and smirked. He never thought of that. Follow me, he said to his entourage as he turned around and began to run. Why are we going back? One girl asked as she followed. She was still shaking after the earlier encounter. You will see, Tom answered mysteriously while trying his best to appear charming. The system, although it had a sharp tongue, really treated him well. Ellipsis. In the safe zone on the top floor, Isabella frowned as she watched Victor walk into the safe zone with two unfamiliar girls and the twins. One of them seemed to be missing a hand, but she was not sure which as she couldn't tell them apart. Thankfully both of them survived. Mina, what happened? Mr. Gold ran quickly to check on Mina's hand as the still shocked schoolmates watched from afar. This was the first dungeon raid for most of them, and now they were scarred for life. We had an accident, Victor said. Where is Lynn? Didn't she meet up with you? Alma, the girl who was with Lynn and Mr. Gold asked, still shocked after witnessing Tristan's ugly death. She said she will search for the other students, Mina said. But, what if the nutcracker got to her? Alma asked, making Mr. Gold frown and Victor shiver and involuntarily yelp as if that name reminded him of a very horrific scene. Oh, the twins didn't know how to answer that. Did you meet with it? Mr. Gold, who noticed how Victor reacted, asked. Teacher Isabella also tuned in. Mr. Gold had already told her about Tristan. Was this nutcracker real? She wondered. Yes, we saw it work from afar. More than 40 players died under its hands downstairs. Thankfully they were all bad players and not anyone from the academy. Mina said, carefully controlling her expression. The fake Victor's expression was genuine though. She had seen him work. She wanted to forget, but she couldn't. How could she? He warned her that she would suffer the same fate if she acted badly again. He made her sign a contract too. How did you escape? Alma asked. We got lucky as it was after some very strong players, Mana replied this time. Those poor guys didn't have a chance. I can still hear their desperate screams when I close my eyes. She said as she tried her best to appear frightened. How can you leave Lynn alone there? Mr. Gold looked at Victor and scolded. Lynn is your fiancée, isn't she? Ah, I couldn't stop her, Victor replied as he quickly took out his tent, placed it in a corner then went into it not wanting to argue any further. I need to rest, he explained in a frightened voice. Mr. Gold, when we met that thing. The young master stood in front of us to protect us, don't be hard on him. Mana said as she quickly followed Victor inside the tent. Mina and the two other girls also followed under the shocked eyes of the students. This tent was meant for 1 or 2 occupants max. Pervert, Isabella spat as she stood up. Where are you going? Mr. Gold, who was frowning, asked. I will go down, she said. I need to find the rest of the students. She lied, she just was worried about Tom and was going to search for him. Be careful, return as soon as you locate any. Mr. Gold, who knew that he couldn't stop her, said after hesitating for a moment. This dungeon had just turned into an S rank, they should follow the protocol and protect the students while waiting for help that would definitely come. Thankfully, Victor had given them the energy bars that solved their need for food. Although a little eccentric, Mr. Gold felt that Victor was a good young man. Ah, a lewd sound shattered the serious atmosphere seconds later, it came from the tent. Damn that pervert, ellipsis. Alex and Zoe were utterly exhausted when they reached the stairway and Icefigar, who seemed a little annoyed after eating most of the skeletons, began to pick up his speed again because the tunnel had widened near the exit. The escaping girls had no other choice but to run as if their lives depended on it. No wait, their lives did depend on it. They quickly climbed the stairway as Icefigar, who had turned into a snake behind them, hit the door and then shattered into smoke before reassembling into a slug and squeezing behind them. It took them exactly 1 minute to run their way up the stairs and into the bright garden. They stood there in shock for mere seconds as their eyes adjusted to the brightness. Oh, Zoe, Victor, who was waiting there while relaxing on a sunlounger, said as he sat up. Victor, run, it is after us. Zoe said, pausing for a second to catch her breath as Alex, who totally ignored Victor, kept running into the distance until she tripped and fell. Is it here? Victor asked in shock as he stood up abruptly, nearly stumbling. Yes, Zoe said as she began to run again. How did you? Quickly follow me. This area has a trap that I set. I was trying to act as a decoy to lure it in. He said, grabbing the exhausted Zoe's soft hand and quickly dragging her, and began to run, totally ignoring Alex, who he purposefully stunned and left on the ground. Zoe didn't know why she couldn't resist Victor's hand as he dragged her, maybe because she was tired. It took them a few seconds to reach an area far away that had been camouflaged. From here, they would have time to escape if their plan failed. Young master, Alex pleaded as the black fog began to appear at the ominous stairway gate. Seconds later a delicate hand grabbed her and pulled her into hiding. It was Lin who was hiding to the side. It is coming, Zoe said as she swallowed and stepped back. Yes, it is time for revenge. Victor said. Wait, cousin, did you also meet that boss before? Zoe asked. What boss? This was a trap meant for the Nutcracker. Victor said. Isn't it the one running after you? Ah, the Nutcracker. What Nutcracker? No, I was being followed by a monster who had just eaten the boss of the dungeon. I think it is the last boss. Zoe said as she wondered if she should continue running. Victor's hand, which didn't let go of hers, stopped her though. What? Bosses can't leave their chambers. Victor said. This was something he had been pondering about for a while now, and he had a theory. I am not sure, Zoe said as she just realized that what he said was true. This was taught in the academy. Could it be that this thing was not the boss? She frowned as she watched the slug that slowly crawled from the stairway. Its appearance was not clear in the tunnels because of the darkness, but here, she could see it clearly. It was a slug made out of bloody jelly with all kinds of floating skulls filling its innards while howling in pain. Victor frowned as he gripped Zoe's hand hard. Prepare. He said, although it is not the Nutcracker, my trap should be able to finish it off. He added as he pondered waiting until the monster crawled onto a set position. Now, he shouted, making Lin activate a talisman. Kaboom! Zoe, who didn't expect this, flinched from the giant explosion and was about to fall to the ground in shock, but Victor's strong hands quickly hugged her. Sorry, I should have warned you, he said as he softly hugged her while eyeing the smoke that slowly began to drift away moments later. Confirmed visual, the enemy is still standing. Lily's voice came from above the trees. Run, she said as her voice trailed away. She was already on the move using the network of ropes she prepared beforehand. Victor didn't wait to see the results for himself. He quickly carried the still shocked Zoe like a princess and began to move away. Lin did the same with Alex, except that she dragged her like a garbage bag. Seconds later a giant frog landed on the spot where Victor and the girls were seconds earlier and began to look around with its ominous flaring angry eyes. It was injured, not because of the bomb, but because of the tree twigs that Victor had purposefully sharpened using the green goo before placed everywhere. Things from this dungeon seemed to be able to hurt it. Too bad the damage didn't seem to be that effective. What the hell is that thing? Lin asked as they ran. I have no idea. Your driver, Alex, saw it first. Zoe replied, watch out. It's going to jump again. She yelled as she watched the monster begin to flex its muscles. Victor didn't flinch as he took out a talisman and then activated it before ducking with Zoe in his hands. Kaboom! Another explosion sounded, but this time it was way softer as it only caused the floor below the giant frog to collapse and it to fall into a lake of green goo. 9 trees around the pit toppled over seconds later trapping it. Agagagaga! The monster shrieked in pain for the first time since its awakening. Did we get it? Alex the Jinx asked. No, Lily replied from above, it is unaffected. She added, making Victor who had stood up and resumed his running frown, that sound was surely a sound of pain. Put me down, Zoe finally said as they reached a clearing. She was blushing slightly. Oh, sorry, just bear with me for a minute or two, Victor said as he continued to run across the clearing until he reached another camouflaged area where he gently put her down behind a tree. Lin casually threw Alex to the floor while glaring slightly at the blushing Zoe. Is there another trap here too? Zoe, who was trying hard to hide her blush, asked as she noticed the crate in the middle of the clearing. Yes, this was meant for the Nutcracker. Damn it, hopefully, that thing won't attack us from the back. He began to talk nonsense as he used his binoculars to observe the monster that had turned into a black fog in the shape of a snake and was slowly crawling out of the green goo and passing through openings between the toppled tree trunks like smoke. It appeared to be unaffected, but Victor realized that it lost all of the bones and skulls that were filling it. This smoke was not physical at all. Damn it, the soul poison, his best trump card, wouldn't work against such enemies. What is the origin of this thing? He wondered as he prepared to activate the last trap. Chapter 268, Boss Battle 2. Alex, were you the first one to meet that thing? Victor turned and asked the nervous girl as he unblocked her ability to move. He waited for the monster to reach the clearing. Its movement had slowed down considerably after the green goo bath. Ah, yes, Alex replied nervously. She was still worried about facing Victor because of the toys. And now there is this monster. He would surely punish her. Her butt was about to be erased. Did it appear like this when you met it? Victor asked as he inspected the monster. ISPHIGAR the great less than boss greater than. STR, 1. AGI, 1. Int, 5,484,188,451,110. LCK, 14. CHM, unavailable. Skills, Devour, S. ETHERIAL Body, S. Body of the Smoke, S. Death Touch, S. It didn't have any strength or agility at all. It must have been using the skills of the things it ate earlier. At the beginning, but not as solid as it is now, there were maybe some bones under the altar. She quickly shut up after realizing that she spoke too much. What altar? Victor asked as he looked back at the now sweating Alex. Ah, you see, when I found it, it was hovering on top of an altar, she lied, trying to pick her words carefully. Did you happen to touch that altar? Victor asked, causing Zoe to look at Alex with a gaze full of hate. She knew it, maybe a little, Alex began to explain. Ah, ooh. The monster began to howl again, interrupting the interrogation. Victor quickly looked at the monster as it slowly formed back its foggy body, but it didn't use bones this time, but the wood splinters of the fallen trees. It slowly crawled its way toward Victor and the girls, devouring everything in its way, including a certain lonely crate. Zoe quickly clogged her ears with her fingers, expecting an explosion, but nothing happened. There were no bombs in the crate. Zoe frowned as she watched the crate dissolve in the smoke. It was full of wine bottles that began to dissolve one by one. We should run, Zoe said nervously. That thing will not get drunk, and it's probably immune to poison. It's not that, Victor said. He began to slowly pull back. Lynn, take Alex and go ahead. Zoe, prepare to run on my signal. The monster slowly followed, very wary of traps as it left the clearing and entered another batch of trees where it began to devour everything. Those trees had some very ripe fruits. Run, Victor said as he grabbed Zoe's hand, then activated a haste talisman and began to run away. Kaboom! A big explosion, far larger than the previous one, shook the entire dungeon. It threw Victor and Zoe to the ground despite them being about a mile away at the moment. The explosion was so big that one of the giant lanterns that illuminated the garden fell from the ceiling and cracked over the ground not far from their position. It took Victor 1 whole minute to slowly stand up. Shit, he lost his hearing. He quickly took a healing pill as Lily's screaming voice finally reached his mind. It seems injured, but it is regathering. She was shouting. What? Regathering? It survived that? Victor frowned and slowly focused his eyes to see that the wooden snake had been totally shattered. He could see that random wisps of black smoke were beginning to gather in the deep pit that was left after the explosion. *T, he said as he grabbed Zoe and carried her like a princess again. She would not be able to run fast enough. Are you okay, cousin? He asked as he forcefully pushed a pill into her little mouth. I am fine, she said with a blush. He took the hit for her earlier. Why can't she fall in love with someone like him? What was she thinking now? It is not the time for this. Where to? Lynn, who was running to Victor's side, suddenly asked. Their prepared traps have all failed. I don't know, he said for the first time. Did he really need to use that bug? That boss's elimination won't be registered if he did that though, it would be a waste. Why is it this strong? Zoe asked. How could it survive that? Exactly, this thing was supposed to die by that final attack. It could have only survived if its soul was not entirely here. He stopped abruptly and then gestured toward Alex, who was still running, making her trip and fall to the ground again. Ah, she screamed as she hit the dirt with her pretty face. Dear Alex, Victor said as he gently put Zoe down and then walked slowly toward the poor Jinx girl. He was really tempted to finish her off. This was all his fault. He should have spanked her butt more. What? Alex asked as she turned around, then intended to stand up and failed because he was over her, making her fall on her poor butt. Did you by any chance take anything from that altar? He asked very coldly, sending shivers down her poor spine. Ah, yes, I remember now, she said as she nervously took out a sword hilt from her ring. It is useless. I tried swinging it at him but it didn't work, she explained as Victor quickly grabbed the hilt from her hands and began to inspect it. Sword of the Lost Ones, SSS. Like this sword have no blade, it can only be wielded by those who have no head. Strength plus 100%. Agility plus 100%. Intelligence plus 1%. Skills. Soul Lock. Absorb a part of the enemy's soul and lock it in. *T, Victor said. Victor now knew how that thing was sealed. This sword must have contained Isfagar's soul, not its entirety as the fruit had worked on it, but probably just a part of it. That's why it could leave its chamber, as the real boss chamber was technically this sword. The idiot Alex had been dragging it with him all this time. Young master, why are you looking at me like that? Alex asked as she felt that Victor was really intending to kill her. Just deciding on your punishment, he said as he looked at the sword hilt again. *T. He cursed again. He pondered if he should destroy the sword with the soul poison, but he had no way to make sure that the soul part in it would not escape as the sword lost its power. If the soul really escaped, that thing would be free and would never fall for his tricks again. And it would be a waste to destroy this. But as long as that thing exists, the dungeon would not close. Young master, it is on the move again. Lily, who was tasked with the surveillance, reported again. That monster was building itself again using dirt. Zoe, quickly, bind this weapon, then use it to kill the monster. Victor finally thought of something. This sword should be able to kill it. Ah, you should do it. She said she was not really confident about her ability. I can't, this weapon requires its wielder to be headless. I don't want to lose my head, you see, my pretty face is the only redeeming feature I have left. He began to mumble some nonsense as he pushed the sword into her hand. Cousin, I am not headless. Zoe began to speak, then paused as the sword hilt began to shine in her hand and an ethereal blade appeared above it. Ah, she was shocked. As a hero, you can wield all kinds of weapons regardless of their wielding conditions. Victor whispered in her ear. Name, Zoe von Weisbolt. Level, 0. Class, Hero, SS. Authority, 3. Strength, 40. Agility, 45. Intelligence, 29. Luck, 20. Charm, 27. Order, 10. Skills, Hero's Aura, SS. Versatile, SS. Last Breath, SS. Combat Expert, S. Quick Learner, S. Leadership, A. Survival, B. Cooking, B. Poison Resistance, D. Sword Arts, D. Dagger Arts, D. Cleaning, E. Pain Resistance, F. Staff Arts, F. Equipment, Defense Talisman, S. Storage Ring, B. Von Weiss Elite Family Token, B. Fate Status, Fate's Power, SS. Defined Fate, Greatness, Destiny List less than 10 order points to unveil greater than. Bloodlines, Elder Dragon 40%, question mark question mark question mark. 45%, question mark question mark question mark. 5%, how did you know? She didn't continue to ask as she felt his hand grab hers. Not now, you are not in a good shape, I will help you deliver the hit. He said, preparing to use her state as an excuse to share the reward for the final hit. I can do it by myself. She protested with a blushed face. He was too close to her, and she could feel his breath on her ear as he held her from behind. I don't want you to be hurt, he softly scammed her. Making Lily, who was watching, spit to the side. Why was her young master a pervert? Why can't she have a nice well-behaved young master? But, Zoe wanted to protest. No buts. We don't have time, Victor said as he carried her light body and jumped forward, then flew with the help of the levitating necklace to position himself right above the monster. Zoe had no time to think when she heard his voice. Aim down, he said, helping her adjust the ethereal sword in her hand to direct down onto the monster that had just reformed and was crawling out of the pit. The moment it touched it, the black smoke forming the monster's body began to burn, then suddenly exploded like a chamber filled with gas, hurting both Victor and Zoe, who were now surrounded by the fire. Zoe screamed in pain, but suddenly she heard a shattering noise and felt her body getting hugged by a warm embrace as she began to levitate upwards. It took her a second to realize that Victor had surrounded her with his body, taking most of the damage. He could barely fly a little away from the burning pit before falling to the ground on its side. Young master, Victor, Lily and Lynn ran to his side to check on him. He was really burnt badly. Even Alex, who was at the moment considering how to escape, forgot her plan as she hurried toward him. They totally ignored the system prompt. System notification, 3 quest has been completed. ISPHIGAR the Great has been eliminated. Zoe looked at Victor, who collapsed over her with panic. Tears began to fill her eyes. Although she rarely cried, she couldn't help herself now. Don't worry, Victor spat with difficulty as he flipped over to lay on his back, then began to laugh like a maniac. The girls surrounding him frowned as if wondering if his head was injured, then began to smile as he miraculously began to heal. Level up, level up, level up, skills upgraded, Contractor of Doom +1 greater than can convert normal contracts into system contracts. Voluntarity conditions apply. Time limit 60 minutes after signing. New titles. Greater than hero party member. Defeat a boss as a part of a hero's team. Plus 10% to all normal attributes when assisting a hero. Greater than hero's journey. Help a hero survive a hopeless situation. Plus 30% charm. Plus 30% luck. New system skills. Night vision. D. Fate power upgraded. A greater than A+. Recognized skills had been upgraded. Victor had risen by 21 levels. And his contract skill had improved. Maybe this was because he used it a lot to scam little girls in the dungeon. No matter what, this would spare him a lot of headaches later. Warning, the system is trying to add 2 authority points. Allow less than yes greater than less than no greater than. He quickly pressed less than no greater than. Failed points were reallocated to order. Name, Victor von Weiss. Level, 143. Titles, greater than Dungeon Explorer discovered a dungeon. Greater than Dungeon Conqueror X2 triggered a dungeon clear event. Greater than Savior X2 saved a human from an unavoidable death flag. Greater than Avenger killed a Stigma title holder. Greater than Master Demon Slayer killed a demon 100 times stronger than you. Greater than Last Breath Warrior fought in a deadly situation in a dungeon. Greater than Hero Party member defeat a boss as a part of the hero's team. Greater than Hero's journey help a hero survive a hopeless situation. Status, Authority, Infinity, Health 5780. Stamina 5440. Mana 4150. Strength 395. Agility 350. Intelligence 415. Luck 48 plus 14. Charm 56 plus 16. Order points, 1371. Class, Fate Weaver. Subclass, None. Class skills, Eyes of Destiny, X plus 2. Destiny Shield, SSS plus 1. Fate Tracker, X plus 1. Fate Instinct, X plus 1. Recognized skills, Womanizer, A. Face Slapping, C. Butt Slapping, D. Silky Tongue, D. Sword Arts, D. Gourmet, E. Pain Tolerance, E. Poetry, E. Creative Writing, E. Songwriting, E. Sleeping, E. Poison Brewing, E. Acting, E. Lying, E. Evading, E. Self-healing, E. Dagger Arts, E. Needle Arts, E. Movement Arts, E. Mace Arts, E. Dismantling, E. Torture, E. New. Martial Arts, F. Piano, F. Guitar, F. Quick Reading, F. Poison Resistance, F. Bleeding Resistance, F. Castration, F. New. Formations Art, F. New. System Skills, Admin Appraisal, SSS plus 4. Admin Merchant, SSS plus 2. Master Seal, SS plus 4, 5, 6. Contractor of Doom plus 1, S. Unlimited Disguise, SS plus 4. Eidetic Memory, A. Super Enhanced Senses, A. Silent Blade, A. Fire Breath, A. Disabled due to the lack of fire magic affinity. Dagger Throw, B. Night Vision, D. New. Health Regeneration, E. Lie Detection, F. Enhanced Senses, F. Magic Affinity, None. Bloodline, Elder Dragon, AAA 5% Awakening. Fate Strength, A+. Less than unaffected by outside fates greater than. Equipment, less than broken greater than Defense Talisman, S. Less than broken greater than Defense Talisman, S. Dragon Storage Ring, S. Shadow Shifter Ring, SS. Less than damaged greater than Area Inspect Ring, C. Less than slightly damaged greater than Levitation Necklace, A. Less than broken greater than Leather Armor, A. Congratulations, the dungeon has been cleared. Finalize in 1 hour. Chapter 269, Rule the World. Victor, who was lazily lying on his sun lounger, watched as an army of summoned gargoyles worked tirelessly to collect all the debris from around the garden. Lin was using them to clean up before the dungeon closes. They were summoned earlier in preparation for the battle against Icevigar. They were meant to be a part of the last trap but ended up without a job. Why don't we descend and search for the reward room? Lily asked as she carefully fed her young master a grape. It would take at least 4 hours to reach the first room and at least 20 to reach the one at the bottom, Victor replied after a sigh. We better take what we can here. You have a map too, don't you? Zoe, who was watching the show while resting to the side, suddenly asked. Of course I have. He replied, how do you think Alex was able to find his way here so fast? I sent him the map. He explained, making Alex, who was tied by her ankles and hanging from a tree, look away as Zoe glared at her. She lied to her earlier. How did you get the map? Zoe asked. Quote. It's a system reward. That's all I can tell you for now, as you still can't get it, Victor said as he slowly looked at her slightly annoyed face. Don't worry, one day I will tell you. Now I need a favor, he said. What? She asked. After we leave the dungeon, they will probably question us. I want you to claim that you killed the monster alone with Lynn. Don't tell them anything about meeting me or Alex. No, that won't do. Just replace Alex with some poor player who died in the battle. He said. Ah, why? It was all your work. I can't take the credit. I could only be carried around by you, she said, then blushed as she trailed off in a low voice. Cousin, this is important. Victor said seriously, you might not know it, but my situation in the family is very delicate. If I became too strong all of the sudden, some factions might decide to eliminate me. What? That can't be. The family might appear united, but it is a mess nowadays. Victor interrupted her, you don't have such restrictions as you don't belong to any branch unlike me. He explained. But, no buts. I don't want to ruin the image of a pervert young master that I crafted for myself. He said. Stop saying the word, but, so casually, like no one is noticing that. And why do you always act like a pervert anyway? Can't you just be normal? Zoe asked. From knowing Victor, she realized that he was a very dependable person, but he always acts like this, ruining his image. If you act decently, with your strength, you might get to be an elder in the future or even the patriarch. I told you, I have many enemies, and will definitely have more in the future. And why would I ever want to be an elder or a patriarch? Those are some very tiresome jobs. I just want to relax and enjoy my life with my harem. He started, then stopped talking as Lily stuffed his mouth with a bunch of grapes. I can help you, but I have a condition, Zoe said, totally ignoring the pouting Lily, who might be trying to murder her young master. What? Victor asked as he chewed his way out of suffocation. Tell me how you knew how to use that weapon. She asked. It was only a handle. Why was he so sure it would work? Oh, that's easy, but keep what I tell you a secret. Victor said as he lowered his voice, and looked to the sides to make sure no one was listening. Alex tried to eavesdrop, but Victor used his disguise to make sure she couldn't. Zoe nodded. I have a very strong inspection skill. I can examine everything I see, from weapon to players. I can even figure out your 3 sizes. You don't have to wrap your chest that tightly. No one would. He was interrupted. It's not your business. And you don't have to say that too loudly, she said with a blush as she put her hands on his mouth, making him briefly let go of the rope in his hand before catching it again as Alex dipped a few inches toward the boiling cauldron below. Young master, spare me, Alex cried out as she twirled around helplessly, making Zoe, who finally noticed her ambiguous position over Victor, quickly let go and then sit to the side as she crossed her arm, hiding her chest with a blush. She regretted asking her shameless cousin. Why can't he just be normal? And why does he smell this good? She questioned herself silently. Victor, who could easily read the thoughts of a little girl, chuckled, then softly bit Lily's finger that forcefully pushed an entire fig in his smirking mouth. She was getting jealous again. But that's to be expected. She was probably afraid that someone would take him away from her before she could have a chance to take a bite. Well, when she gets to taste his strength, after the wedding, she will definitely beg him to take more wives. He, what are you grinning about? Zoe suddenly asked, ignoring her embarrassment. His grin was just too lewd. Nothing, just wondering that you are not that different from me, you two hide your true beauty, he said. Shut up, she said as she blushed and looked away again. It was what her late mother taught her. She was used to staying low-key. Being a beauty in a poor mountainous village was an invitation for trouble. Victor, who was watching her pout, sighed. In his previous lifetime, when he met Zoe at the Imperial Palace, she proudly walked around like a queen, digging the eyes of anyone who dared to look at her proud chest. What made this sweet girl so nasty? He quickly looked at her, sacrificing 10 order points to look at her destiny list. Destiny list. Greater than less than world fate greater than Cyan. Greatness with the world's blessing less than SSS greater than less than birth fate greater than defend the world's fire gate less than SS greater than less than birth fate greater than kill 9,999,999,999 demons less than SS greater than Greater than less than birth fate greater than decapitate the world eater less than SS greater than less than birth fate greater than destroy the book of space. Less than SS greater than less than self set greater than find a good husband less than SS greater than less than self set greater than solve the mystery of father's disappearance less than SS greater than less than self set greater than help rebuild my village less than SS greater than less than self set greater than help Oliver overcome his sorrow less than SS greater than less than self set greater than defeat evil everywhere less than SS greater than less than ID underscore X underscore 147,337 greater than 30 days great misfortune less than 24/30 days greater than less than S greater than. So that's what they hid back then. Zoe turned up to be one of the mysterious Five Gates protectors. That's why the imperial family respected her greatly. Victor pondered. What? The Book of Space. Did this have anything to do with the Book of Time? Yes, the Book of Time was discovered across the Fire Gate. What if he tried to get it before Zoe destroys it? Could it be done? Stop glaring at me, Zoe had to say finally, to wake him up from his contemplation. Why was she feeling like this? Oh sorry, I was just enchanted, he said, then turned around, grabbed Lily's hand then dragged her forcing her to fall on his lap. Ah, young master, Lily complained softly as he glared at her clear eyes. I can only look at you now, he said jokingly, making Zoe pout for no reason, while Lily chuckled. The truth was that Victor wanted to take the opportunity to check Lily's fate. Destiny list. Greater than less than birth fate greater than rule the world less than X greater than less than birth fate greater than destroy the fate sect less than X greater than less than self set greater than marry the young master less than E greater than less than self set greater than give birth to the young master's children less than E greater than less than self set greater than be always beside the young master and protect him less than E greater than less than self set greater than be the young master's favorite less than E greater than less than self set greater than find out about my original family less than E greater than less than self set greater than get filthy Margaret away from the young master less than E greater than. Holy sh*t, Victor suddenly cursed, making Lily flinch. Young master, stay still and let me think, he scolded as he began to carefully inspect her like a porcelain doll. She didn't really mind, but the jealous glares she was getting from the girls and Alex were a little uncomfortable. Why was Alex glaring at her like this? She had no idea. Victor on the other hand was pondering about many things. First, he quickly scrolled through his log file and searched for the entries he got when he upgraded his class at the auction. Log, Lily, X-Birth Destiny Death Overridden, 10 million PTs. Log, Lily, AID underscore X underscore 147,337 Destiny Death Overridden, 5,000 PTs. Ever since then, he has been pondering about Lily's two death fates. The first one has clearly turned from death to rule the world. Why was that? He had a hunch it had something to do with her family, but was not really sure. The second, Death Destiny, was caused by that artifact ID underscore X underscore 147,337, which Victor was now pretty sure belonged to the Fate sect. It meant that they wanted her dead. She was meant to destroy them. They must have known about her. But the question was whether the Fate sect knew her real identity or they were using some kind of an identifier or a trace to target her. Victor suspected it was the latter. Wait, could it be that the Great Misfortune curse was not aimed at him, but at Lily? He must have unconsciously disturbed some of their plans in Vane City. But couldn't they just target Lily specifically? Why did they need to fish her out like this? It made no sense. Should he make Lily his blood slave and use his disguise skill on her? No way. This would be very detrimental to his plans and to her too. This would need to be delayed until after she got baptized at Black Nest Castle. For the first time in a while, Victor had no idea what to do. There were many things he didn't really understand about fate. Maybe he just needed to play along. His plan would need to be readjusted though. Young master, my hair is burning, can you at least lower the temperature a bit? Alex's repeated pleas broke Victor's line of thoughts. Enough whining, this is your punishment, take it like a man. If you told me about the sword hilt as soon as you reached this floor, I wouldn't have had to waste all of those gems. That explosion cost me a fortune. Victor scolded. He didn't care about the gems. Even with the sword, he would have needed to weaken Isfagar first. Victor was just using this as an excuse to punish Alex. Her bad luck was flaring very dangerously. He had to make sure that she got miserable enough to suppress it. All of this without making her hate him. It was a delicate balance. Oh www. Can't you spank me instead? Alex asked, making Zoe, who was listening, blush. How can a man ask another this? Could it be? She gasped. No way, I can make Lily spank you instead though. Victor replied, making Zoe breathe in relief while Lily glared at poor Alex dangerously. No thanks, I am fine here, I am a man, I can take this punishment. Alex retreated. Unlike Margaret, who was a little lenient with her before, the merciless Lily would surely dig out every ounce of flesh from her tender butt before she got satisfied. Ellipsis. Tom, we are rich, Peter said as he began to stuff his pockets with gems. The moment the announcement sounded, all the skeletons, corpses collapsed, leaving behind mountains of gems. Yes, Tom said with a frown. He had just ransacked the reward room behind the Lich King's chamber, which was full of treasures and had 2 very unique artifacts, but his happiness didn't last as the dungeon was conquered moments later, and he didn't get a chance to level up. System, what happened? Who defeated that monster? Tom asked with annoyance. Calculating. The monster Isfagar the Great was defeated after a bloody battle by Zoe von Weiss by utilizing a sacred sword. You wouldn't have stood a chance. Tom frowned but said nothing. He was not satisfied with the system's analysis. Warning. Critical mission. The Nutcracker had set his eternal eyes on you. Prepare a tribute and pray for survival. Survive for 24 hours. Reward. 10 million coins. In case of failure, the system does not need to punish a dead man. What is the Nutcracker? Tom asked. The Nutcracker is a multidimensional demon that was set free when this dungeon was opened. What? Tom wanted to question it more, but the whimsical system, being whimsical, decided to hold its silence. Ellipsis. The zone around the dungeon gate was a mess. Report. The gray-haired 3-star general who slowly descended from the black unmarked, twin dragon, jeep ordered his right-hand lieutenant as he looked at the ominous-looking gate. Sir, 97 hours ago, player Naomi Chill reported finding a disguised talisman under the gate and discovering an anomaly. The players' council directly ordered our dispatch. I know that. I want to know what the appraisers found. Ah, sorry sir. It is an S-rank gate just as we suspected. Sir, did the headquarters send any new instructions? Will they send a raid to save the students, or would they just ignore it and bury the gate like the one near Green Mist Town? Sir, they intend to conduct an emergency council meeting tonight. They would probably delay the decision, the lieutenant said. Oh, it has already been 2 days, what's going on? Inside the dungeon, there are 2 students with sensitive backgrounds. They are elite heirs from the von Weiss family. Oh, so this turned into a political game. Yes, sir, raiding an S dungeon is not an easy task. Even with 10 master players, there is only a 20% chance. The council member would surely force the von Weiss family to handle the cost. Probably, sir. Well, let them fight this out. We are only here to collect our paycheck. Let's just hope that. The general was interrupted as the gate began to pulsate. Sir, is it going to explode? The lieutenant asked. No, it has been conquered. The general said as he squinted his eyes. Clear the perimeter. He ordered in a loud voice just as the dungeon's vortex began to slowly expand, making everyone step away and watch. The vortex soon grew to fill the entire area around the dungeon gate, then began to retract, leaving piles of collapsed players. Don't let any player leave, make them wait to be thoroughly questioned, the general suddenly ordered. He had just noticed that most of the players who appeared were not teenagers. Those were not students from the academy. Chapter 270, That Ring. Now, once again, you said you were saved by. Describe what you saw, the old sergeant asked a haggard female teenage player as he filled the document in front of him. He was trying hard to ignore the old man in a black robe who was sitting behind him, carefully inspecting the player and supervising the questioning process. They were sitting in one of many tents that was built to debrief players privately. Ah, I saw this monster while I was hiding. It had long black horns and ominous eyes. He was chasing this evil man. The girl squinted her eyes trying to remember. Yes, the man said to the monster, Nutcracker, spare me. But the monster didn't care. He cut the man in half, then crushed his crotch. He crushed it with his giant mace. She said with a blush. In another tent, another player was saying the same thing. Those men, I had to work with them. They forced me. Ellipsis. Then it came. It only had one sentence. It didn't say it, but we heard it in our minds. Hail the Nutcracker, fear the Nutcracker, it kept repeating. That's when I remembered my grandma's old saying that all men are cowards. So I ran. The man began to cry. If he wasn't a 7-feet-tall giant with puffed muscles, the sergeant would have really felt sorry for him. During this debriefing, similar stories were getting told again and again. Other than how those players got scammed into here, the Nutcracker kept getting mentioned all over the place. Some of those players are faking it, the sergeant said to the general as they walked between the tents. That's why we separated them immediately and forbade them from talking to each other. We will cross-examine their statements later. The general replied, looking at the clearing to the side where the players were sitting silently 3 feet apart. I just can't believe things like cannibalism happened, the lieutenant said. If you manage to live long enough, you would see more, the general replied. He didn't take the stories about the Nutcracker seriously, he considered that it was just a monster in the dungeon and was probably eliminated. Are we going to let them go just like this? Some of those guys are worse than monsters. The lieutenant said. The general sighed and said, our job is just to file the reports, the council would make the call later, just make sure to search for any storage pouches. Everything they got must be reported. Isn't this against the rules? Council order, this was an S-dungeon after all. The general said. The council was really evil, using the pretense of conspiracy to investigate the players' trophies. While nothing would be taken from them today, after a few days some of those players, who got the really nice stuff and had no background, would be visited by some nice macho men. This is life. Survival for the strongest. He pondered to himself, how many of the academy's students survived? The general asked suddenly. About 60%, thankfully the really important ones didn't die. This is to be expected. The top families always provide their heirs with protection treasures. The general said as he looked toward the few other tents where similar debriefings were happening. A soldier suddenly ran from a nearby tent toward the general. General, a girl is making trouble. She is refusing to cooperate. Can't you even force a little girl? The general shouted, earning himself some strange looks from some of his soldiers who took his words out of context. She claimed to be the concubine of the von Weiss heir. She said she can only be interrogated with the approval of her young master. The soldier replied awkwardly, true, the families have such rules, let's go see her. The general sighed awkwardly then gestured to the soldier to lead the way. Inside the tent, a burly sergeant was about to lose his mind arguing with the unreasonable girl who was sitting on the metal chair in a very seductive way. She had no shame in displaying her pretty long legs. I know the rules. You can only question someone from the families under their master's supervision. And like I said, this ring contains sensitive materials concerning my duties. My young master has entrusted me with these. She argued just as the general walked into the tent. Where is your young master? The general asked immediately, realizing that this girl was not as dumb as she appears to be. In the other tent, probably flirting with some girl, she said, puffing her rosy cheeks. Ellipsis. In the other tent, a young master was busy wrecking the nerves of a pretty female sergeant who was debriefing him. As I said, the Nutcracker pulled that guy's balls from his mouth. Victor said as he moved his hands to visually demonstrate the disturbing action. I couldn't even believe that such a thing was possible if I didn't see it with my own eyes. And why did it spare you? The sergeant asked, glancing at the cloaked man in the back who was frowning, not sure if Victor was kidding or not. Victor hesitated then lowered his voice, because of my handsome face. I think it was gay. Shut up. The sergeant pounded the table, take this seriously. Or I swear I will leave you rotting here all day. She scolded, that's the most she could do. Fine, but don't tell anyone. I am only telling you this because you are pretty. He said before looking around, making sure no one was listening, totally ignoring the cloaked man and the fact that his statement was getting recorded. The truth is, I was so scared that I peed. No, forget that. I meant that I had to grovel on the ground, call its name loudly and give it my storage ring. It accepted it before looking at me with admiration then leaving. He whispered while looking disturbed. So that's why you don't have any storage artifacts? The sergeant asked writing some things on her paper. Yes. He nodded, displaying his empty finger. I even had to beg my maids for some change, food, and a tent after that. He explained, making the sergeant not help but notice that he was truly wearing purple pants. Little did she know that these were Victor's own lily-picked pants which he had to change into after spilling green goo on the other ones. I see, she said sarcastically. So after facing the monster, What happened? It is called the Nutcracker. Whatever, what happened next? Give me a kiss and I will tell you, he replied with a wink. Why don't you go FCK yourself? She cursed angrily. Whatever good impression she had on this handsome guy when she met him had long evaporated. I tried, although it sounds physically impossible. Shut up. The sergeant was about to lose her mind. How can a man be this shameless? Now she had an extra disturbing image in her mind to erase. The cloaked man in the back was suffering from the same problem. Sergeant, you have to make up your mind. I can't shut up and answer your questions at the same time. He stated the obvious. The pretty sergeant was really considering taking out her gun and shooting this young master in the head when the general entered the tent. She quickly stood up and saluted. At ease, the general said, then looked at Victor. Young Master Victor the first, presume? He asked. The one and the only. Victor said arrogantly as if he didn't just confess to wetting his pants. Are you finished here? Mostly, but we have some things to clarify, the sergeant replied. We can do those later, the general said before turning to Victor. One of your concubines is refusing to cooperate. Can you perhaps talk to her? The general asked. Of course, Victor said as he stood up, then quickly followed the general into a nearby tent. Not forgetting to give the sergeant a wink on his way out. Ellipsis. Young master. Margaret, who was pouting, quickly jumped into Victor's embrace and hugged him as soon as he entered the tent she was in. I thought I would never see you again, she said as she groped his ass from the back, making everyone frown. How can this girl be this shameless? Little did they know that her other hand, which was sandwiched between hers and his body, was busy drawing certain letters on his chest. I missed you too, Victor said with a satisfied, wretched smile. Why are you giving those nice men such a hard time? He asked. If the female sergeant who was questioning him earlier was here, she would have shot him immediately. It's not that. They wanted me to show them what's inside the storage ring. Isn't this against the rules? Victor asked in surprise. Council orders, the general coldly explained. Then we have no choice, Victor told Margaret apologetically. But young master, it is that ring. What ring? The one you let me carry for my nightly duty. Ah, Victor exclaimed, then paused in shock before turning to face the general. General, can you make an exception? He said with a troubled expression. No exceptions. It was not the general who replied, but the man in the black cloak. Victor had long noticed him. Name, Elton Blackwing Von Sway. Level, 69. Class, Inquisitor. Authority, 6. Strength, 181. Agility, 200. Intelligence, 201. Luck, 15. Charm, 11. Order, 19. Skills, lie detection, S. Appraisal, A. Perfect memory, A. Torture, A. Kissing, A. Intimidating aura, A. Alchemy, B. Speech reading, B. Poison resistance, B. Pain resistance, B. Stun resistance, B. Energy shield, C. Cleaning, C. Staff art, D. Dagger arts, D. Cooking, F. Equipment, identity hiding robe, A. Von Sway family token, A. Storage ring, A. Fate status, Fate's power, C. No defined fate, destiny list less than 10 order points to unveil greater than. *T. Not again. Victor cursed as he had enough of this bad luck. The man who monitored him in the tent previously didn't have a lie detection skill, so Victor wrongfully presumed that they would only use lower-ranked inquisitors. The situation had become a lot more complicated, although he had long expected this interrogation after the dungeon changed into an S rank. He didn't expect it to be this thorough. He was not unprepared though. Not only did he instruct the girls on what to say and how to say it, he also made sure that all of the valuables in the girls' storage rings, except for Margaret's, had already been emptied beforehand just in case. Thankfully Margaret knew what to do without his instructions. I can make you see what is in the ring. But you can't take anything out. And you can't tell anyone. This might affect my reputation, Victor said after some hesitation as he quickly readjusted his plan. Fine by me, the old man said. He will just write a report later exposing everything. Give him the ring, Victor said. But, just do it, and wipe it first. Don't think I don't know where you usually keep it. He scolded, making Margaret blush as she wiped the innocent ring with her cuff. Then ignoring the weird looks from the audience, she gave it to the old man. The old man hesitated for a second before grabbing the ring. He closed his eyes, inspecting the things inside one by one, totally unaware that Victor was manipulating what he saw. The old man's face changed slowly from a stern expression to utter bewilderment. Aren't those torture tools? No, they are too fluffy for that. And what is that? He didn't have to think for a lot to know the answer, but he wondered how it could be this big. Could this fit? Master Elton, is everything all right? The general asked after 5 whole minutes, causing the old man to wake up from his bewilderment and then throw the ring at Margaret with disgust. Continue with the debriefing. What a waste of time. He cursed as he sat back down. He would not be able to sleep tonight. Margaret, who caught the ring like catching a treasure, quickly put it on her finger and then slowly sat down. Now would you answer the questions? The old sergeant asked. Can I? Margaret asked Victor, who nodded before finding a seat to the side to relax on. The others didn't notice, but while the old man was inspecting the ring he had already secretly told her how to act. She was to only tell the truth as briefly as she can. And if she ever needed to lie, she would raise her foot a little so that he could intervene in time. Thankfully he didn't need to do that. So, what happened? The sergeant asked. I just found myself in a closed room and couldn't get out. I spent the entire time being stuck eating shitty snacks. Is that it? Yes, she blushed, causing everyone to wonder what exactly she spent her time doing. Did you meet any other players? No. Was there anything strange in the dungeon? Or the room you were in? No. She frowned. Did anything out of the ordinary happen? No. Did you find any treasures? Not as far as I know. And like that, Margaret's troublesome interrogation ended. The Inquisitor never realized that she was lying because she was not. Although Victor could disguise the investigator's lie detection skill results using his upgraded disguise skill, this was a very delicate job that required a lot of concentration, as he needed to know the lies beforehand. Especially with the Inquisitor having that speech reading skill, meaning that Victor would have also to match Margaret's lips precisely, which was a very annoying thing to do. So he preferred to use another simpler method. He just changed the questions Margaret was hearing. Do you like your young master? Yes. Are you a virgin? No. Do you like your cousin? No. Do you have any STDs? Not as far as I know.